Chapter 870. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a ferocious aura locking onto her, and with her current strength, she could not fight back. However, just as Xiao He and Xiao Bai were about to make a move, someone had already stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. "Who dares to hurt my wife?" A low and furious voice sounded, with the same overbearing and determination as always. Just one sentence had an indescribable power. "Who dares to touch her?" A cold voice sounded, filled with a kind of deep threat and pressure, making people unconsciously feel a chill down their spine. These two voices sounded almost at the same time, and two proud figures, one golden and one black, had already stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Boom! The two of them hit the man with lightning speed, and everyone only saw a ripple of energy. This kind of power was much more terrifying than the fight between the students of the academy. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two figures in front of her, and her delicate face was full of surprise and disbelief. Di Beichun. The pale gold figure looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and the moment he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, the brutality and anger turned into gentleness and love. However, when Di Beichun's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's blood-stained clothes, an uncontrollable anger swept through his heart again. Who did this? The low and depressed voice swept through the boundless storm. He had to go back to the sect for some business, and after solving the matter, he quickly rushed back. From Heimu, he learned that Bailey Hongzhuang had come to the Qing dynasty to participate in the academy exchange, and he quickly rushed over. The closer he got to the royal battle arena, the more uneasy he felt. He did not expect that there would be royal guards outside the door, and he rushed in without hesitation. However, when he saw the situation in the martial arts arena clearly, he was so angry that he wanted to split open. Almost with a glance, Di Beichun had already understood what had happened. Huan Chuyu and the team of Kangling College were taken hostage, and only Bailey Hongzhuang was left on the stage, holding the crown prince and Nangong Oji. Without thinking, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was forced to do this. The people of the Qing dynasty were so shameless, using the power of the entire country to deal with a team of Kangling College. Nangong Aochen's heart was cold. The power of the man in front of him was almost stronger than his father. He had always felt that his strength was the best among the younger generation. It was not until he fought with Bailey Hongzhuang that he discovered that this girl who was younger than him had such tyrannical strength. However, after seeing the man in front of him, his heart was even more, because when he faced with this man, he had a feeling he could not be compared. This Di Beichun, who was he? Her pale face showed a relieved smile, and Bailey Hongzhuang, who was originally like a string, also relaxed after seeing Di Beichun. Although the situation in front of her was still so bad, as long as Di Beichun was there, she could feel at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. It was a long story, and the most important thing was to solve the situation in front of her. At the same time, Di Beichun's eyes fell on Mo Yunjue. Chapter 871. When Mo Yunjue saw Di Beichun appear, he was surprised for a moment, but in the blink of an eye, he had returned to indifference. Bailey Hongzhuang was in such a dangerous situation. If Di Beichun did not appear, then he was really not qualified to be her husband. Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue's eyes met for a moment, and Di Beichun immediately realized that he had a strong and powerful rival. Mo Yunjue's eyes did not hide his love for Bailey Hongzhuang, and the subtle provocation made Di Beichun even more unbearable. Bailey Hongzhuang was also stunned by Mo Yunjue's actions. Previously, Mo Yunjue had helped her a series of times, which was already very rare, but now Mo Yunjue was going against the royal family for her. This was a completely different concept. The first tower was built in the imperial city, and Mo Yunjue had angered the royal family of the Qing dynasty at this moment, which was tantamount to a huge loss for himself. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang understood what Mo Yunjue had done. Mo Yunjue, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. At this moment, she could not say anything other than thank him. However, before Bailey Hongzhuang could finish her words, Mo Yunjue had already raised his hand to stop her. What he wanted was not Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings. After everyone present saw the sudden appearance of Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue, there was a strong sense of amazement in their eyes. At this critical moment, there were two heroes who saved the damsel in distress. And the most important thing was that these two young people actually joined forces with the royal family's master and were still safe and sound. Isn't that the boss of the first tower? I have long heard that Bailey Hongzhuang is Mo Yunjue's wife, and now it seems that it is true. That's not right. Wasn't the man in the pale golden robe who claimed that Bailey Hongzhuang is his wife? What's the situation? Everyone was completely dumbfounded, whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue. For them to be able to help at this time, it was enough to prove the position of Bailey Hongzhuang in their hearts. However, these two people were Bailey Hongzhuang's husbands. Di Beichen's ears moved slightly and heard the discussion of the crowd. His eyes flashed a cold light, and once again looked at Mo Yunjue. His expression had changed. Damn it, what did this guy do when he was not around? Di Beichen was anxious. If he had known this, he would have taken Hong Zhuang away with him, and Hong Zhuang would not have fallen into such a situation. Compared to the storm in Di Beichen's heart, Mo Yunjue seemed very calm. However, Di Beichen also knew that now was not the time to be entangled. The Qing dynasty's royal family was their biggest problem. What's more, he had enough trust in Hong Zhuang. It was just Mo Yunjue's unilateral idea. When Xia Jiqing and others saw Di Beichen appear, their eyes could not help but show a look of excitement. Di Beichen was the person with the highest status among all of them. Even if the Qing dynasty was a big country, the strength of Tiangong sect was even more amazing. Nangong Oji would definitely not dare to make a move against the young lord of Tiangong sect. After Nangong Yuer saw Mo Yunjue and Di Beichen standing in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, her heart had been swept by a strong jealousy. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to have one foot in two boats? However, these two guys seemed to be willing to do anything for Bailey Hongzhuang. 1. Chapter 872. Your strength isn't bad. A low and hoarse voice rang out. Only then did everyone notice that an old man had appeared beside Nangong Oji. The old man's figure was haggard, and his body exuded an aura of twilight. However, his eyes were abnormally bright and did not seem like an old man in his twilight years. Clearly, the person who had attacked Bailey Hongzhuang was this old man. Di Beichen's gaze met Nangong Oji and the others. His handsome and extraordinary face was filled with a glacial coldness. No matter who this group of people was, anyone who dared to harm his wife was his enemy. When Nangong Oji saw Mo Yunjue attack, his calm eyes rippled and revealed a look of disbelief. He had a certain understanding of how powerful Mo Yunjue's forces were. However, the other party was unfathomable, and even he had no way of understanding him. He also had a certain understanding of the close relationship between Mo Yunjue and Bailey Hongzhuang. However, in his opinion, Mo Yunjue was only a woman. It was impossible for Mo Yunjue to fall out with the imperial family over a woman. However, the situation before his eyes clearly proved that he was wrong. He never thought that Mo Yunjue would be such an infatuated person. For Bailey Hongzhuang, he would make an enemy of the imperial family. That was not wise at all. In the next second, Nangong Oji's gaze landed on Di Beichen. This was his first time seeing Di Beichen, and he did not dare to underestimate him. The aura that this young man exuded was extremely shocking. As the ruler of a country, he knew very well that this kind of aura was not something that an ordinary person could possess. Only people in high positions could possess this kind of aura. Di Beichen's aura, might, and strength all revealed that he was extraordinary. He was definitely someone who could not be ignored. "Who are you?" Nangong Oji asked. For a moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Di Beichen. They also wanted to know the identity of this man, who had suddenly appeared. Di Beichen looked coldly at Nangong Oji, his thin lips moving slightly. Tiangong sect, Di Beichen. Tiangong sect. When everyone heard the name of the Heavenly Dipper sect, their eyes were filled with shock. That was an extremely powerful force in the Shengxian continent. Anyone who could become a disciple of the Tiangang sect was a true dragon among men. The young man in front of him was actually a disciple of Tiangang's sect. Nangong Oji's pupil shrank. While everyone was shocked by the name of the Heavenly Dipper sect, he was shocked by the name of Di Beichen. Di Beichen. He had heard of this name before, but he didn't expect to see it here today. Di Beichen, the young lord of the Tiangang sect, a well-deserved young talent. Although Nangong Ouchen's strength was strong, it was only within the scope of the Qing dynasty. Compared to Di Beichen, a true genius of the Shengxian continent, it was still not worth mentioning. An ordinary student of the Azure Water College was actually the wife of the young lord of the Tiangang sect? What was this? Nangong Oji simply couldn't believe it. Did the sects nowadays not have the slightest bit of discrimination? Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was very outstanding, if she wanted to be Di Beichen's wife, she was still not qualified. Nangong Oji did not doubt Di Beichen's identity. Just Di Beichen's bearing had already proved too much. It was just that this result was a bit higher than he had imagined. Chapter 873. Di Beichen's voice was arrogant and irrefutable. Even in the face of the Qing dynasty's emperor, his attitude was still so overbearing. In this situation, you can't take her away just because you want to. At this time, the haggard old man had already opened his mouth. He was very dissatisfied with what Nangong Oji had done this time. According to the rules of the royal family, one should not make a move without absolute certainty. Now that the situation had become a stalemate, it was naturally impossible to offend Tiangang's sect. But if the people of Kanglin College were to leave like this, the reputation of the royal family of the Qing dynasty would be greatly damaged. Nangong Oji obviously also knew the impact of this matter, but he really did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang could be related to the young lord of Tiangang's sect. Oh, Di Beichen's mouth was once again filled with an evil smile, but the coldness and sternness in his eyes became more and more terrifying. If anything happens to my wife, I will bury the entire Qing dynasty with her. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. What is the identity of this Di Beichen? If he was just an ordinary disciple of Tiangang's sect, he would not dare to say such a thing. Everyone's eyes flashed with an incredible color. How big was the Qing dynasty? Even if Tiangang's sect was a bigger existence, it was impossible to do this by relying only on Di Beichen. Di Beichen, this name is so familiar. Where have I heard it? Nangong kept thinking in her mind. She always felt that she had heard this name before, but she could not remember it for a while. Suddenly, Nangong eyes narrowed, and there was a touch of incredible color in her eyes. The young lord of Tiangang's sect, Di Beichen. A feeling of disbelief spread in Nangong heart. How could such a high existence appear here? Bailey Hongzhuang was his wife. How could this be? As everyone knew, the young lord of Tiangang's sect, Di Beichen, was the Prince Charming in the hearts of all women. Many people had beautiful dreams. Even with her identity, she was not worthy of Di Beichen. However, a commoner like Bailey Hongzhuang was able to win Di Beichen's heart. Nangong voice had unknowingly increased by a few octaves. The originally confused crowd's expression changed when they heard Nangong words. Their puzzled expressions had turned into deep shock. Young lord of Tiangang's sect. Such a lofty existence had actually appeared here. At this moment, no one doubted the weight of Di Beichen's words. With his strength, he could destroy the entire Qing dynasty. However, the royal family still dared to say such words. Were they crazy? The old man obviously did not expect Di Beichen's attitude to be so resolute. Just this sentence of Di Beichen was enough to prove the weight of Bailey Hongzhuang in his heart. Mo Yunjue also looked at Di Beichen. He was no stranger to Di Beichen. Since the early years, the name of Di Beichen had been shrouded in a layer of halo. Not only that, he also knew how Di Beichen got together with Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, he did not care about other things, but Di Beichen's vision was really good. A golden unicorn was not a fish in a pond. Once it encountered the wind and clouds, it would become a dragon. Bailey Hongzhuang's future was definitely not limited by a mere identity. Chapter 874. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at this scene in shock, and their eyes were full of amazement. Domineering. Di Beichun was too domineering. In front of the Qing dynasty emperor, except for Di Beichun, no one could say such a thing. The original tense situation seemed to be no longer so terrible after the appearance of Di Beichun. The woman in white on the stage was so overbearing and ruthless before, but since the appearance of Di Beichun, there was a touch of tenderness in her eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang was their hero, and Di Beichun was Bailey Hongzhuang's hero. Nangong Oji's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's injury. He understood that the reason why Di Beichun was so anxious at the moment was entirely because of Bailey Hongzhuang. He knew even more clearly in his heart that no matter what, nothing could happen to Bailey Hongzhuang today. Otherwise, in front of the huge Tiangang sect, even the Qing dynasty's royal family was nothing. However, in this situation, they really had no way out. If Di Beichun and the others were allowed to leave, even if they completely blocked the news, there would still be many people who would know about it. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. Nangong Aochen, as the next monarch of the Qing dynasty, wanted to take advantage of the opportunity of the college exchange to let everyone know how powerful he was and lay a good foundation for his ascension. However, now he was not only defeated by a woman whose strength was 2 levels lower than him, but also had his tendons cut in public. This was definitely a big shame for him. Even Nangong Oji was extremely depressed at the moment. In the past, the Kangling College had always been abused. Why did Di Beichun's wife stay in the college to cultivate and represent the college? No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang's previous performance was so amazing. To be able to have a good man like Di Beichun, it was impossible for her not to be strong. Di Beichun did not hesitate to hold Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms. His careful appearance was as if Bailey Hongzhuang was a peerless treasure and he was afraid of accidentally hurting her. All the women present had already admired Di Beichun after knowing the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, seeing such a noble Di Beichun treat Bailey Hongzhuang so gently, their envy for Bailey Hongzhuang had reached the extreme. Isn't Bailey Hongzhuang too happy? If I can be held in the arms of Di Beichun, it's worth it. From the beginning, I felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was extraordinary. It turns out that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity is so amazing. Originally, everyone found it difficult to accept that Bailey Hongzhuang was both a cultivator and an alchemist. At the same time, she was also very accomplished in inscription techniques. But now, after knowing the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang, they also understood. There were always some special geniuses in this world, and ordinary people could not be compared to them. Nangong Yu, or looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was held in the arms of Di Beichun. Her 5 fingers were tightly clenched, and her nails were deeply embedded in her palms, dripping with blood, but she was unaware of it. Drip! Blood dripped to the ground. Nangong Yu had never been so jealous of a person in her life. She had liked Mo Yunjue for so long, but Mo Yunjue had always been cold to her. Now, Mo Yunjue took care of Bailey Hongzhuang, but Bailey Hongzhuang was already married. Chapter 875. Di Beichun's eyes fell on Nangong, Oji, and the others. If the Qing dynasty really wants to be destroyed, then do it. As his voice fell, Di Beichun did not look at Nangong, Oji, and the others. He held Bailey Hongzhuang and walked off the stage. If the Qing dynasty dared to stop him, they would be looking for their own death. He knew that Nangong, Oji, and the others had such an attitude because they wanted him to give them a way out. However, he would not give it to them. As a strong person, he never needed to consider the feelings of the weak. The fact that the Qing dynasty dared to treat Bailey Hongzhuang like this had already provoked his anger, but now Hongzhuang's injury was the most important thing. He must first help Hongzhuang deal with her injury. As for the rest, he would deal with it later. When he turned around, Di Beichun's eyes collided with Mo Yunjue's for a moment. He naturally did not have any good feelings for this man who coveted his wife. However, no matter what, this man had helped Hongzhuang, and he was still grateful. Understanding the meaning of Di Beichun's eyes, Mo Yunjue's lips curved into a faint smile. He shrugged his shoulders indifferently. He knew very well that his current situation was just to take care of Bailey Hongzhuang when Di Beichun was not there. As for other things, it was not the time yet. Nangong Oji and the others looked at Di Beichun's overbearing actions, and their faces became extremely ugly. Indeed, with the strength of Tiangang Zong, there was no need to talk to them, because strength was everything. After seeing Di Beichun's actions, Huan Chuyu immediately stood up. His cold eyes swept over Jian Qingxiu and Song Hongxi before he turned and left. From now on, Kanglin College, Lingying College, and Beihai College will no longer have any connection. Huan Chuyu's back was straight, and his words were full of freedom and arrogance. He and Ren Tianxiong should have made this decision a long time ago. Now that he had said this, he felt extremely relieved. When Jian Qingxiu and Song Hongxi were enjoying the benefits and glory brought by the royal family, they never found that they had lost control of the academy. Perhaps this feeling was not clear yet, but it would not be long before they understood that they were simply puppet-like existences. It was a pity that he was blinded by a single leaf. Song Jian Qingxiu and Song Hongxi stared at Huan Chuyu's back as he left. They wanted to say something, but couldn't. Faintly, they also felt some clues from the actions of the royal family of the Qing dynasty. But this seemed to be a situation that was difficult to change. When Gong Shaoqing and the rest saw that Huan Chuyu had already stood up and left, they no longer hesitated. They only wished that they could leave this place as soon as possible. In such a place blinded by greed, even the air was filled with a rancid smell. When the Imperial Guard saw this scene, they couldn't help but look at Nangong Oji on the high platform. They saw that Nangong Oji's complexion was ashen, but he didn't stop them. In fact, they didn't dare to stop him. Wasn't this looking for death? When Di Beichun walked out of the Imperial Martial Arts Arena with Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms, he found that the Imperial Guards who had been blocking outside had been knocked down. Chapter 876. At this moment, Gong Shaoqing and the others also understood that it was not that Mo Yunjue did not take action, but he was helping everyone to clean up the situation outside. Mo Yunjue was willing to be the enemy of the entire Qing dynasty's royal family for Bailey Hongzhuang. This alone was enough to prove Mo Yunjue's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. You all go to the inn to stay first. I will go find Fu Hongba and Dongfang Yu. I will find you later, Lu Huayin said. Hearing this, everyone's expression quietly changed a little, but soon returned to normal. Now that Di Beichun was there, even if the Qing dynasty's royal family knew where they were, they would not dare to do anything to them. They believed that nothing would happen to Lu Huayin and the others. After Di Beichun and the others left, Mo Yunjue looked coldly at Nangong Oji, turned around, and walked down the stage indifferently. It seemed that he did not let Nangong Oji and the others know how powerful he was, and they thought that they were great. It was time for him to do something. The royal family clearly knew that he and Bailey Hongzhuang had an unusual relationship, but they still dared to do so. He was too low-key. Sensing Mo Yunjue's gaze, Nangong Oji's heart turned cold for no reason. He always knew that Mo Yunjue was not an ordinary person, but during this time, Mo Yunjue had been very indifferent until Bailey Hongzhuang appeared. He saw the cold light in Mo Yunjue's eyes and suddenly realized that he had made the wrong decision. He always thought that for Mo Yunjue, Bailey Hongzhuang was just a beautiful woman. In this world, women have always been accessories to men. He believed that Mo Yunjue was only interested in Bailey Hongzhuang, and this kind of interest usually did not last long. It was absolutely impossible for Mo Yunjue to have a conflict with the royal family for Bailey Hongzhuang. Now it seemed that things were completely different from what he had imagined. Mo Yunjue's care for Bailey Hongzhuang was beyond his expectations. Bailey Hongzhuang was already married to someone else, but Mo Yunjue was still willing to do this for Bailey Hongzhuang. He never knew that Mo Yunjue would be so infatuated. Everyone looked at Mo Yunjue leaving without fear after making a move, and their expressions changed. Since the appearance of Di Beichun, All their attention had been attracted by Bei-chun. After all, they usually did not have the opportunity to see an existence like Bei-chun. At this moment, seeing Mo Yoonjua leave so indifferently, they understood that Mo Yoonjua's identity was not simple. Nangong Yu-er's gaze followed the tall black figure, but Mo Yoonjua did not look at her from the beginning to the end. Huan Chuyu and the others returned to the inn they had stayed in before. Bailey Hongzhuang's injuries were very serious. Her ribs were broken, she had lost a lot of blood, and she had been in a standoff with Nangong Oji for so long. One could imagine how much energy she had consumed. Bei-chun placed Bailey Hongzhuang on the bed, and Xia Jiqing and the others immediately went to find a doctor for Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was a genius doctor, it was impossible for her to treat her current situation. After everyone left, only Bailey Hongzhuang and Bei-chun were left in the room. Looking at the handsome face in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with joy and joy. Her white and thin fingers slowly covered Bei-chun's face. Chapter 877. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's pale face, Bei-chun's eyes flashed with deep distress. "I'm late." His low voice was full of guilt and self-blame. If he had come back earlier, Hongzhuang would not have been seriously injured. It was all his fault for not taking good care of Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's right hand covered Bei-chun's frowning eyebrows, and after smoothing his eyebrows, a gentle smile appeared on her lips. "This is my own fault for not being thoughtful enough. It's not your fault. Don't blame yourself." So far, Bei-chun had helped her too many times. Every time there was a problem, Bei-chun would help her solve it. She did not want to always need Bei-chun's protection. She hoped that one day she could stand calmly beside Bei-chun and not be Bei-chun's weakness. This time, no one expected that it had nothing to do with Bei-chun. She did not want to see Bei-chun blame himself. As a cultivator, everyone understood the risks they might encounter. This was a very normal thing. Bei-chun held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and nodded slightly, but his eyes were still full of guilt and heartache. What the Qing dynasty did this time was beyond everyone's expectations. However, he believed that as long as he was by Hongzhuang's side, Hongzhuang would definitely not fall into such a dangerous situation. "In the future, I will not leave you." Bei-chun's eyes flashed with a firm and persistent light. He had made a decision. No matter what happened in the future, he would never be separated from Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang would not know that when he saw Hongzhuang standing on the fighting platform covered in blood, her pale face and beautiful appearance almost made his heart stop beating. He was so afraid that if he came a little later, Hongzhuang might disappear from his life. That was something he absolutely could not accept. The dazzling blood deeply stabbed his heart. At that time, he only felt an indescribable violence and killing intent spread in his heart. If something happened to Hongzhuang, he would definitely bury the entire Qing dynasty. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a gentle and happy smile. At this time, she was very happy to see Bei-chun come back. No matter when, Bei-chun would always be her hero, her only hero. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were affectionate. As a doctor, she had a certain understanding of her injury. Although her ribs were broken, it did not hurt her foundation. It was only because of the confrontation on the fighting platform for too long that she lost too much blood, so she was particularly weak. Not long after, the doctor had already arrived. When the doctor saw Bailey Hongzhuang's injury, he was also surprised and quickly helped Bailey Hongzhuang to treat her. Until Bailey Hongzhuang fell asleep, Bei-chun walked out of the room. Xia Jiqing and others were outside the door. Now that such a thing had happened, they were very worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. When facing Bei-chun, they had an unspeakable guilt in their hearts. So many of them were in the royal arena, but they had to rely on the youngest Bailey Hongzhuang to block all the storms for them. It was really shameful and powerless. Bei-chun, I'm sorry, we are really useless. Chapter 878. Not only Cui Haoyin, but Gong Shaoqing and the others also showed guilt on their faces. On ordinary days, they could be said to be doing well in the academy, but since they came to the Qing dynasty, they found the gap between them and others. In front of this huge royal family, their strength seemed so weak. Except for Bailey Hongzhuang, who still had the ability to confront Nangong Oji, they were completely in a state of control. If it were not for Di Beichun, maybe they would have died in the royal arena today and never come out again. We are really useless. Hongzhuang is seriously injured and still has to protect us. Xia Jiqing lowered her head. She understood that Hongzhuang's injury must be very serious, and it was delayed for so long. It was very bad for Hongzhuang's injury. Even if she had come back, when she thought of the scene in the royal arena, there was an unspeakable anger and resentment in her heart. However, when facing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, she only felt guilty. Di Beichun looked at the guilt on everyone's faces. His expression eased a bit, and he comforted them. This matter has exceeded everyone's expectations. You don't have to blame yourselves. Listening to Di Beichun's comfort, the guilt in everyone's hearts still did not dissipate. Today's scene really affected them. No matter how high-spirited they were, only after they went to a wider world, they understood the gap between them and the people of the big forces. This huge gap was not something that could be made up by their own strength. Noticing the change in everyone's expression, Di Beichun did not say much. The so-called reality would be seen sooner or later. It was not a bad thing to understand it earlier. As long as their mentality was completely changed, their mentality would be more peaceful, and it would be more helpful for their future growth. Everyone is tired today. It is better to go and rest first. Di Beichun said slowly. After today's incident, everyone was tired. After Bailey Hongzhuang's injury improved a bit, they would leave here. He believed that the royal family of the Qing dynasty would block the news of today's incident as soon as possible, but if they continued to stay in the Qing dynasty, they would attract a lot of attention. The earlier he left, the less trouble he would have to face. Everyone nodded when they heard that. They had already learned about Bailey Hongzhuang's condition from the doctor. They were afraid that she would need to rest for a while. Although her injuries were very serious, fortunately, her foundation was not damaged. As long as she was given a certain amount of time, she would be able to recover to her original state. After everyone left, Di Beichun's eyes flashed with a deep and fierce light. Nangong Aochin dared to hurt Hongzhuang like this. He naturally could not watch Nangong Aochin become the successor of the Qing dynasty. Anyone who dared to hurt Hongzhuang, he would not let them off. However, it was still early. When night fell, he had to go out and solve some problems. However, just as Di Beichun returned to his room, Huan Chuyu came looking for him. Vice Principal. Di Beichun poured a cup of tea for Huan Chuyu. Do you have something to tell me? Huan Chuyu looked at Di Beichun deeply. Di Beichun had always been a smart person, and Di Beichun's deep affection for Bailey Hongzhuang shocked him. How was Hongzhuang's injury? Chapter 879. Di Beichun's expression was indifferent and calm. He knew that Huan Chuyu had come to find him for something. But since Huan Chuyu did not say anything, he was not in a hurry. Huan Chuyu looked at Di Beichun's indifferent expression, and a touch of admiration appeared in his eyes. The young lord of Tiangangzong was indeed not an ordinary person. Just this temperament alone was not comparable to ordinary young people. The Qing dynasty's royal family is heavily guarded. After today's incident, the entire royal family will definitely strengthen their patrols. Maybe they have already set up an inescapable net. With Huan Chuyu's understanding of Di Beichun would definitely not watch Bailey Hongzhuang get injured and do nothing. If he could predict it, the royal family would naturally be able to predict it. Today's incident had already made the royal family of the Qing dynasty ugly. Now that such a thing had happened, the royal family would definitely be more careful. If Di Beichun was with the people of Tiangangzong, then it would be fine. But if Di Beichun went alone, the royal family may not be able to do anything crazy. As Huan Chuyu's voice fell, Di Beichun's expression changed a bit. To be able to become the vice principal of Tsanglan School, Huan Chuyu's vision was far from ordinary people. He understood that Huan Chuyu reminded him at this moment for his safety. Needless to say, the power of the entire Tiangangzong naturally did not need to be said. It was a simple matter to crush the Qing dynasty. However, he was the only person in the Qing dynasty. It was undoubtedly difficult for him to deal with the royal family alone. Huan Chuyu noticed a change in Di Beichun's expression and understood that Di Beichun must have listened to his words. Bailey Hongzhuang still needs you to take care of her. Huan Chuyu left a sentence and left. He had said what he needed to say. As for what Di Beichun would do, it was Di Beichun's decision. As long as they left the borders of the Qing dynasty, then everything in the Qing dynasty would have nothing to do with them. There was no need to risk their lives. After Huan Chuyu left, Di Beichun finished his tea in one gulp. Maybe Huan Chuyu's words made sense, but he was Di Beichun. He would never allow anyone who had harmed his wife to live peacefully. From the moment they dared to treat Hongzhuang in such a manner, their fate had already been sealed. Night slowly fell, and the entire Qing Shao kingdom was shrouded in a layer of darkness. The atmosphere in the imperial city was different today. All the citizens of the imperial city were curious about the final result of the inter-school tournament. The first 2 days of the inter-school tournament were very enjoyable. The strength of the cultivators of the 3 major schools could not be underestimated, especially the dark horse Bailey Hongzhuang from the Kanglan School. They believed that today's finals would be very exciting. Despite that, while they were looking forward to the final result, no news about the finals was released at all. All the people who had watched the finals kept their mouths shut, as if it was a big taboo. They did not know anything about the finals. But the more the other side kept their mouths shut, the more they understood that there was something fishy going on. After all, the previous inter-school tournament had never been like this. What the hell happened? Everyone kept guessing, but there was no result. Chapter 880. Di Beichun covered Bailey Hongzhuang with the quilt and left a soft kiss on her forehead. The next moment, Di Beichun had disappeared from the room. The imperial palace. Di Beichun's figure flew through the night. He had already inquired about the location of the crown prince. Even if the royal family had multiple layers of protection, it would be easy for him to kill Nangong Aochen. However, just as Di Beichun was about to arrive at the crown prince's palace, a black figure appeared not far away from him. Seeing this black figure, Di Beichun's eyes became deeper and darker. He did not expect to meet Mo Yunjue here. It seemed that their purpose tonight was the same. When Mo Yunjue saw Di Beichun, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes, followed by a faint smile. It seemed that Di Beichun was deeply in love with Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if he embarrassed the royal family of the Qing dynasty in front of everyone today, he still did not feel happy. Therefore, he wanted to kill Nangong Aochen. As a man, he understood men best. Just by looking at Di Beichun's eyes, he had already understood Di Beichun's intention to kill Nangong Aochen. Di Beichun did not have a good impression of Mo Yunjue. He had never seen Mo Yunjue before. However, from the moment he saw Mo Yunjue, he knew that Mo Yunjue was not an ordinary person. At least, Mo Yunjue must have a very strong force behind him. Otherwise, it was impossible for a restaurant owner to have the courage to confront the royal family. Not to mention, Mo Yunjue also killed the royal guards outside. When they left, Mo Yunjue was still in the royal family's arena. Now, Mo Yunjue came out safe and sound. This alone was enough to prove Mo Yunjue's strength. The two of them looked at each other, their hearts surging. The war between men had always been very fierce. I'm very grateful for your care towards Hongzhuang earlier. However, if you have any improper thoughts, I hope that you can stop thinking about it now. Di Beichun's voice was low. He saw the stubborn light in Mo Yunjue's eyes. Anyone who had bad intentions towards Hongzhuang was his opponent. Hearing this, Mo Yunjue chuckled. Di Gongzi is really overbearing. Even if Hongzhuang has already fallen for you, you two are not a couple. Maybe there will be some changes in the future. After all, Han Shilling is not a person who will give up easily. Following Mo Yunjue's words, Di Beichun's deep and dark eyes were filled with a sharp light. Mo Yunjue was actually so familiar with the situation between him and Hongzhuang. He and Hongzhuang were only husband and wife in name. Other than him and Hongzhuang, no one else should know about this. However, Mo Yunjue was actually so clear about it. Could it be that Hong Zhuang had told him about it? Di Beichen rejected this idea as soon as it appeared. Hong Zhuang would not have mentioned this. Furthermore, based on his understanding of Hong Zhuang would never deny this, because Hong Zhuang had always wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. This meant that Mo Yunjue was not just paying attention to Hong Zhuang. To be able to find out about this, Mo Yunjue's methods were impressive. This is between me and Hong Zhuang. You don't have to worry about it. Chapter 881. If you treat Hong Zhuang well, I naturally won't have chance. But if you don't do it, then I won't be polite. Mo Yunjue's eyes flashed with a cold light. He knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang's heart was not with him. However, the result now did not mean that it was the final result. From the last confrontation between Bailey Hong Zhuang and Han Shilling in the ruins, it could be seen that if Di Beichen's attitude was not decisive enough when dealing with this matter, the situation may have changed. He had one advantage, which was that he was never in a hurry. Looking at Mo Yunjue's appearance, Di Beichen narrowed his eyes. It seemed that he really had a very strong opponent. The other party clearly knew his identity and yet dared to do this. This identity was really worthy of consideration. He had to investigate it. After all, Mo Yunjue had investigated his matter so clearly. It was impolite not to reciprocate. He naturally had to understand. Then, I'm afraid that you have wasted your efforts. Di Beichen looked at Mo Yunjue lazily. His deep eyes flashed with seriousness and determination. He would never allow anyone to interfere between him and Hong Zhuang. In the next moment, Di Beichen's figure flashed and continued to rush toward Nangong Aochen's bedroom. At this point, there was nothing to say between him and Mo Yunjue. He would not give Mo Yunjue any chance. Mo Yunjue did not care much and also swept towards Nangong Aochen's bedroom. The Qing dynasty's royal family had gone too far this time and should pay some price. Nangong Aochen's life must not be left alive. The royal family was just as Huan Chuyu had thought. They knew that Di Beichen would not leave so easily and had immediately protected the place where Nangong Aochen lived. However, the following situation was beyond their expectations. Because Nangong Aochen suddenly had a fever and all the imperial physicians were helpless after seeing him. In a short period of time, Nangong Aochen was already unconscious and his original injuries showed no signs of healing. After knowing this, Nangong Oji was furious. Nangong Aochen's experience today was already a great humiliation. After returning, he became like this. Nangong Oji's mood could be imagined. However, after Nangong Oji knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang had fed Nangong Aochen a pill, his expression changed a little. He naturally knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang was a pill master. At such a critical moment, the thing that Bailey Hong Zhuang fed Nangong Aochen naturally wouldn't be anything good. Nangong Oji looked at the imperial physician kneeling on the ground, unable to restrain his anger. Quickly go and invite a pill master. The reason why Ao Chun became like this must be because of Bailey Hong Zhuang. Yes, the imperial physician scrambled away. How important was Nangong Aochen's position in the Qing dynasty? If something happened to Nangong Aochen, they were afraid that they would not be able to keep their lives. Nangong Oji's expression was very ugly. Bailey Hong Zhuang was an alchemist. Naturally, the thing she took out could only be solved by an alchemist. In this inter-school competition, the royal family had indeed made a wrong decision. Now it was really like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Chapter 882. When Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue arrived at Nangong Aochen's palace, they saw this scene. They didn't know that Bailey Hong Zhuang had fed Nangong Aochen a pill. Looking at the helpless situation of this group of people, Bailey Hong Zhuang was ruthless enough. She had probably already decided not to let Nangong Aochen go. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue were surprised. Ordinary women would not know what to do when faced with such a situation. However, not only did Bailey Hong Zhuang deal with it calmly, she even thought of a solution. It was really amazing. After seeing this scene, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with understanding. He knew Hong Zhuang's medical skills very well. If Hong Zhuang had already made a move, She would not have let Nangong Ouchen be detoxified so easily. It seemed that Hong Zhuang had already thought of everything. His trip was in vain. Hong Zhuang is really amazing. We came in vain. Mo Yunjue's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hong Zhuang was smart and brave. She did not have the slightest bit of mercy to the enemy. It was hard to imagine that such an excellent woman grew up in such an environment. Di Beichen glanced at Mo Yunjue and left the palace. Mo Yunjue looked at Di Beichen's back as he left. A meaningful smile appeared on his face. Perhaps he was later than Di Beichen in the past. However, this did not mean that he would be later in the future. With a flash, Mo Yunjue's figure also disappeared into the darkness. The next day, Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly woke up. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Di Beichen beside the bed. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang wake up, Di Beichen's eyes were filled with joy. "Wife, you're awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled and shook her head. "No." Di Beichen poured a cup of water for Bailey Hong Zhuang and gently fed Bailey Hong Zhuang. He knew that Bailey Hong Zhuang was just saying that. The pain of broken ribs was not something that could be recovered in a short period of time. However, his wife had always been strong and did not want everyone to worry about her. "Wife, you should be hungry. I'll ask someone to heat up the food for you." Di Beichen's eyes were filled with a gentle and doting light. Hong Zhuang had not eaten anything since yesterday's battle. She must be very hungry. He had already asked someone to prepare the food. However, he did not know when Hong Zhuang would wake up. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at Di Beichen's busy figure, and a blissful smile appeared on her lips. She had thought that it would be very difficult to leave the imperial family's battle arena alive. Now, not only did she survive, but everyone was also unharmed. She was already very grateful. Although the wound still hurt, this pain was undoubtedly much better than the various consequences she had imagined at the beginning. "Master, how are your injuries?" Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher's eyes were filled with concern. They were also very sad to see their master so injured. Bailey Hong Zhuang reached out and stroked the heads of the three little fellows. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. You should be hungry too. I'll ask Di Beichen to prepare some food for you." Chapter 883. Master, if you encounter such a situation again in the future, don't worry about anything else. Let me and Xiao Bai do it. Xiao Hei's eyes shone with seriousness and stubbornness. She understood that her master did not want her and Xiao Bai to do it, because she was worried about their safety. However, they felt even sadder when they saw their master injured. This feeling of not being able to use their power was driving her and Xiao Bai crazy. "Yes, we can't always be like this. Everyone will know about it sooner or later," Xiao Bai said seriously. Bailey Hong Zhuang looked at Little Black and Little White's eyes that flashed with a serious light, and her eyes flashed with a trace of contemplation. Not to mention other things. Just the news of her being able to contract 3 contracted beasts alone would shock many people if it were to spread out. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were so powerful. Everyone would be even more shocked. However, she also understood Xiao He and Xiao Bai's thoughts. Even Bai Shi was known by everyone, but the two of them seemed to be invisible. Xiao He and Xiao Bai probably did not feel good. Indeed, she should not continue to hide. Xiao He and Xiao Bai should also appear in front of everyone openly. Just as Bailey Hong Zhuang was about to speak, Di Beichen had already returned with the dishes. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had already flown to Bailey Hong Zhuang's head a second before Di Beichen appeared. Only Bai Shi was still beside Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang sighed deeply when she saw this scene. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also her companions. The previous treatment was really unfair to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang's thoughtful expression and could not help but ask, "Wifey, what are you thinking about?" Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled. "Beichen, come here for a moment." Di Beichen also smiled faintly. He walked over to Bailey Hong Zhuang's bed and sat down. "Wifey, what do you want to tell me?" "Beichen, I want to introduce my 2 companions to you." Hearing this, Di Beichen's eyes flashed with surprise. "Little friend?" Di Beichen's gaze swept across the room. Apart from him and his wife, there was no one else in the room. Could it be that the other party was so powerful that they could even hide from his senses? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and carried Xiao He and Xiao Bai down from her head. She said, "It's the two of them." She had enough trust in Di Beichen. Since they had already decided to be together, she did not want to hide anything from Di Beichen. Yes, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were surprised by Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. Although they had already expressed their thoughts to their master, they did not expect her to make a decision so quickly. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's instructions, Xiao He and Xiao Bai gradually became the same size as Bai Shi. Di Beichen looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who had suddenly become bigger, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. This is, his eyes, which were as deep as the sea, were filled with indescribable shock. Even Di Beichen felt that this scene was too shocking. He had already noticed the black and white hair clip on Bailey Hongzhuang's hair. However, he had only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was very fond of this hair clip. He had never taken it to heart. However, who would have thought that these two hair clip were actually two demonic beasts? Chapter 884. Let me introduce them. This is Xiao He, and this is Xiao Bai. Like Bai Shi, they're my contracted beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Xiao He and Xiao Bai's furry heads as an elegant and perfect smile appeared on her face. Di Beichen sized up Xiao He and Xiao Bai in front of him. At first glance, these two little fellows looked like two furry balls, but upon closer inspection, he noticed that these two little fellows had noses and eyes and were very cute. Hongzhuang, you said that this black one is called Xiao Bai, and this white one is called Xiao He. Di Beichen could not help but feel astonished when he heard the names Xiao He and Xiao Bai. These names and their appearances were completely different. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile deepened. That's right, these are the names I came up with. Hearing this, Di Beichen nodded slightly. This is indeed very creative. Looking at Di Beichen's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that Di Beichen was very helpless about these two names, but she herself was very satisfied with these two names. Wifey, you mean that you have 3 contracted beasts? A serious look appeared in Di Beichen's eyes. He did not miss the main point of Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's right. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi are all contracted beasts of mine. However, I felt that this news would be very shocking if it were to spread, so I did not say anything. However, I feel that there is no need to continue hiding it. Di Beichen frowned slightly. Almost everyone in the Shengxian continent knew about the existence of contracted beasts, but at the same time, everyone knew that a cultivator could only contract one contracted beast. It was because of this that cultivators were especially careful when they contracted beasts, because this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they did not grasp this opportunity well, there would be no room for change in the future. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was actually able to contract 3 contracted beasts. This news was simply too shocking. This news is indeed very shocking. When did you contract Xiao He and Xiao Bai? Although Di Beichen was very surprised by this news, he had always believed that the world was big and that anything was possible. However, when he looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, Di Beichen felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had seen these two little fellows before. Why do I feel that these two little fellows are very familiar? Di Beichen's eyebrows slanted. When had he seen them? Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled, and the smile in her eyes deepened. Speaking of which, Di Beichen, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai had indeed met before. Suddenly, Di Beichen's eyes narrowed, and a look of disbelief flashed in his eyes. Wife, when we first met, that soft cushion. Puffed. Following Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. It seems that your memory is very good. Back then, she had used Xiao He and Xiao Bai to catch Di Beichen. However, at that time, everyone had thought that Xiao He and Xiao Bai were just cushions, and no one had thought much of it. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had confirmed his guess, Di Beichen was even more surprised. He did not expect that to be the case. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had already contracted before we met. They were the ones who had always been with me back then. Chapter 885. If that's the case, you already had 2 contracted beasts before you contracted White Lion? Di Beichen was a little surprised. Although contracted beasts were known to all cultivators in the Shangxian continent, it was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to even find a single contracted beast. With Bailey Hongzhuang's position in the general's residence back then, let alone contracting 2 contracted beasts, she probably wouldn't even be able to see the shadow of a contracted beast on a normal day. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang still had some unknown secrets on her body. However, Di Beichen didn't care about these secrets. Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to tell him about Xiao He and Xiao Bai. This was already proof of her trust in him. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right, Beichen. Do you know if there's anyone in the Shangxian continent who can contract more than 1 contracted beast? According to Xiao He and Xiao Bai, she was the owner of the Chaos Ring, so there was no limit to the number of contracted beasts she could contract. The current Shangxian continent was undoubtedly quite different from the Shangxian continent 1,000 years ago. She didn't know much about this. Di Beichen thought for a moment, then shook his head. From what I know, cultivators can only contract 1 contracted beast. So far, other than you, I haven't seen any cultivator who can contract more than 1 contracted beast. However, having this ability is undoubtedly a good thing for you. At the very least, you'll have a lot of helpers. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with amazement. Hongzhuang could always surprise him. He didn't expect such an ability to appear in Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. So far, her 3 contracted beasts were even stronger than her. As their master, she felt a huge pressure. Di Beichen sized up Xiao He and Xiao Bai. He could faintly feel some fluctuations from these 2 little fellows. It seemed that these 2 little fellows were also very strong. Thinking of this, Di Beichen also felt a little relieved. His wife always had a lot of help by her side. At least the danger was reduced by a lot. Beichen, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher are hungry too. You. Before Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Di Beichen had already understood. I'll get someone to prepare it right away. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. Judging from their attitude, there was no need for them to be secretive in the future. Huh! Xiao He and Xiao Bai rolled around excitedly. The black and white demons could finally make a comeback. Di Beichen placed the food in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang was about to take the food, she felt a slight pain in her arm. Don't move. I'll feed you. Hearing Di Beichen's domineering and gentle words, Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face turned slightly red. Until now, no one had ever fed her. Moreover, this person was Di Beichen. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with narrowed eyes. The atmosphere was really ambiguous. You guys, Bailey Hongzhuang glared at the 3 beasties angrily. These 3 fellows were unusually agitated in this aspect. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher immediately raised their paws to cover their eyes. I'm not looking. I can't see. I didn't see anything. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with helplessness. Her paws were open, but she clearly didn't cover her eyes. Chapter 886. While Bailey Hongzhuang was recuperating, the news of Nangong Aochen's serious illness also spread. Everyone was helpless. Even the alchemy masters of the Alchemist Guild could not think of a solution. This disease was really rare, and they could not solve it no matter how they studied it. After the news spread, everyone was surprised. They did not know how the Crown Prince could have such a strange disease. Only the members of the royal family knew that Nangong Aochen had fallen into this situation because of the pills fed by Bailey Hongzhuang. Now Nangong Aochen was unconscious, and his body was losing weight at an extremely fast speed. If a cure could not be found, then Nangong Aochen was likely to die. This news was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue for the Qing dynasty's royal family. Nangong Aochen was known as the best successor of the Qing dynasty's royal family. No matter from which aspect, he was a unique choice. However, now that Nangong Aochen was in such a situation and Nangong Xiujia was assassinated, if Nangong Aochen could not recover, then there was really no suitable candidate for the next monarch of the Qing dynasty. A refreshing smile appeared on Xia Jiqing's face. Unrighteous people are doomed to destruction. The Qing dynasty's royal family is so disgusting. Nangong Aochen deserves this ending. I can't wait for Nangong Aochen to die. When I think of the appearance of Nangong Aochen and Nangong Oji that day, I hate that I can't kill them with my own hands. Zhang Yunfeng's words were decisive. The royal family wanted to kill them in order to build momentum for Nangong Aochen. Even if a few days had passed, the situation at the beginning was still vivid in her mind. Her hatred for the Qing dynasty could not be eliminated. Not only Zhang Yunfeng, but Cui Haoyin and the others also did not have a good impression of Nangong Aochen and the others. If the other party died, they would feel happy enough. In that situation, the royal family was completely suppressing them with power and did not put their lives in their eyes. The most important thing was that they had not done anything wrong at all. The royal family's actions were really unacceptable. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. Among all the people, she was afraid that she hated the royal family of the Qing dynasty the most. Xia Jiqing and the others were her good friends. Just to let Nangong Aochen be in the limelight, they wanted to kill them all. In that case, she would kill Nangong Aochen. She had never shown mercy to her enemies. When she fed Nangong Aochen the poison, she had already made up her mind that Nangong Aochen must die. Not only that, but the members of the royal family would also be punished. If they wanted to use them as stepping stones for Nangong Aochen, she would make the entire imperial family pay the price. Chu Jio and the others were very helpless. Nangong Oji had summoned them to the palace to detoxify Nangong Aochen, but they had never seen this poison before. Even though they had thought of every method, it was still useless. This kind of poison was simply breathtaking. Chu Jio and the others were certain that the person who had poisoned Nangong Aochen was a poison expert. Otherwise, the poison would not be so difficult to detoxify. However, according to Nangong Oe, this poison had been administered by Bailey Hongzhuang. When they heard this news, they only felt that it was inconceivable. There was clearly a big gap between an alchemist and a poison master. Chapter 887. They had a certain understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang's talent in alchemy, but they didn't know that Bailey Hongzhuang had such attainments in poison techniques. When they first heard about this, they couldn't believe it. With Bailey Hongzhuang's age, it was already inconceivable for her to have such achievements in cultivation, alchemy, and inscription techniques. Poison techniques were also very complicated, and it would take a lot of energy to study them. How could Bailey Hongzhuang have so much energy to study them? If that was really the case, then Bailey Hongzhuang was really a genius. However, Nangong Oji's affirmative tone made them unable to doubt him. With Nangong Oji's identity, since he said so, then he must have enough evidence. With Di Beichen's existence, Nangong Oji couldn't use his power to force Bailey Hongzhuang to save Nangong Aochen. Because of what happened back then, Bailey Hongzhuang probably hated him to the extreme. If he went to ask for the antidote, there would be absolutely no results. Nangong Oji knew that Chu Jio's group had a very good relationship with Huan Chuyu. As long as Chu Jio's group helped, Nangong Aochen might still have a chance to live. In this regard, Chu Jio's group could be said to be unusually helpless. Although they didn't watch the finals, paper couldn't wrap fire, and they also understood the situation of the finals. Speaking of which, this was completely the imperial family oppressing them. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned Nangong Aochen, it was probably because she felt that she might not be able to live, so she poisoned him. If it were them, no matter how magnanimous they were, it was impossible for them to take out the antidote. After all, the imperial family was prepared to take their lives first, and they were only forced to fight back. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang absolutely won't take out the antidote. Chen Yu's voice was filled with certainty. Although he had only seen Bailey Hongzhuang at the alchemy competition, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was a very opinionated person and would not be easily swayed. Just from the way Bailey Hongzhuang treated Wei Hanyun, it could be seen that she never showed mercy to her enemies. Now that they were going to ask Bailey Hongzhuang to hand over the pills, it was undoubtedly an extremely difficult task. They had been in the Qing dynasty for many years, and the royal family had taken good care of them. If they could, they wouldn't want to do it either. The royal family has indeed gone too far in this matter. Moreover, as Di Beiqian's wife, Bailey Hongzhuang is not afraid of the royal family. It is really difficult. There was some helplessness in Lin Hao's eyes. This kind of thing really made things difficult for them. We're just giving a try. If Bailey Hongzhuang is unwilling, there's nothing we can do. Chu Jio's face flashed with contemplation. They did not guarantee that they would succeed. They were just asking about the royal family's care over the years. If Bailey Hongzhuang was unwilling, they would not force it. I just hope that Huan Lao doesn't think that we are on the same side as the royal family. Lin Hao sighed. They and Huan Chuyu had known each other for many years. This time, Huan Chuyu's reputation was almost lost here. From Huan Chuyu's attitude that day, the Kangling College was now determined to break off relations with the other two colleges. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's injury that needed to be recuperated, the Kangling College team would have already left the Qing dynasty. Chapter 888. Bailey Hongzhuang was resting in the house. The injury of her broken ribs was obviously not something that could be healed in a short time. She was afraid that she would have to rest for a few more days before she could leave the Qing dynasty. Bailey girl, how is your injury? Just when Bailey Hongzhuang was bored, Di Beiqian opened the door, and then a familiar voice sounded outside the house. Turning her eyes slightly, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bai Jingtian, Ji Yunma, and Qin Qingwu coming in. We just learned that you were injured, so we came to see you. How are you now? Ji Yunma asked with concern. Although they had not known Bailey Hongzhuang for a long time, they were true friends despite the difference in age. Last time, Bailey Hongzhuang told them a lot of ways to configure the inscription fluid, which made their eyes light up. The inscription technique that had not improved for many years had improved under Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder. Therefore, they not only appreciated Bailey Hongzhuang, but also loved her as an elder. They thought that there would be no problem in the final of the inter-school competition, but they did not expect that such a big thing would happen. If Di Beiqian had not arrived in time, Bailey Hongzhuang's life might have been lost in the Royal Martial Arts arena. When they first learned of this news, the three old fellows were extremely furious. Nowadays, the royal family was becoming more and more useless. They even attacked the students of the academy. If they were there at the time, they would have stood up to stop it. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was fine, their focus was on Di Beiqian. For a long time, they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was very excellent, and ordinary men were not worthy of her at all. Bai Jingtian also thought about what young men could be introduced to Bailey Hongzhuang. Unexpectedly, they did not need to worry about this matter at all. The young lord of Tiangang sect turned out to be Bailey Hongzhuang's husband, which really surprised them. Seeing Bai Jingtian and the other two, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips were also filled with a smile of joy. Although they had only known each other for a short time, Bai Jingtian and the other two gave her the same feeling as those old guys in her previous life, as if they were her grandfathers. There is no problem. I'll be back to normal in a few days. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. This time, the royal family is too much. When I heard the news, I almost died of anger. Bai Jingtian's face was full of anger. Bailey Hongzhuang was a rare good seedling. The royal family wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Those who walk different paths cannot work together. And Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes was right. Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, I listened to your advice last time. I went back and tested it, and it worked. Qin Qingwu's face was filled with a joyful smile. Bailey Hongzhuang's inscription liquid configuration method was quite different from theirs. After some experiments, they found that Bailey Hongzhuang's method was more suitable and gave them a lot of help. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Chapter 889. Hearing Bai Jingtian's words, Di Beiqian's eyes also showed a touch of surprise. He had already heard from Xia Jiqing and others that Bailey Hongzhuang had the talent of an inscription master, but from the attitude of Bai Jingtian and the other two, it seemed that they really appreciated Bailey Hongzhuang. Compared to the Alchemist Guild, the Inscription Association had fewer members, but their power was greater than that of the Alchemist Guild. After all, The rarer something was, the more precious it was, and the number of inscriptionists was too small. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang was quite accomplished in inscription, but with her current age and qualifications, Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely not able to become the president of the Inscription Association branch. This identity meant that Bailey Hongzhuang could draw a lot of resources from the Inscription Association, which was of great benefit to Bailey Hongzhuang. This was something that many inscriptionists wanted. Bai Jingtian actually gave the identity of the president of the Inscription Association to Bailey Hongzhuang so easily. It seemed that Bai Jingtian and the other two not only appreciated Bailey Hongzhuang, but also loved Bailey Hongzhuang like an elder. I am willing to join the Inscription Association, but with my current situation with the royal family of the Qing dynasty, I really can't stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows showed a trace of helplessness. Her biggest gain in coming to the Qing dynasty this time was to meet Bai Jingtian and the other two seniors. If possible, she also hoped to have a chance to communicate more with Bai Jingtian and the other two in the future, but she was full of disgust for the Qing dynasty and would definitely not stay here. Hearing this, Bai Jingtian also sighed. He understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was right. Now Bailey Hongzhuang could be said to have completely fallen out with the royal family of the Qing dynasty. If she still stayed in the Qing dynasty, he was afraid that the royal family would regard her as a thorn in their side, and there would be a lot of trouble in the future. The way the imperial family does things is getting more and more intolerable. Bailey girl, if you have the chance in the future, you must come and visit us three old men, Bai Jingtian said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I will. In my opinion, you don't need to participate in the first-grade inscriptionist assessment. Tomorrow, I will draw up your identity as an inscriptionist and bring your inscriptionist robe. In the future, it'll be much more convenient for you to buy inscription materials from the Inscription Association. If you go to another inscription association for the assessment, it will inevitably be troublesome. Seeing that Bai Jingtian was so considerate of her, Bailey Hongzhuang was flattered. Thank you, Elder Bai. Bai Jingtian smiled and waved his hand. Why are we still talking about this between us? Ji Yinma and Qin Qingwu put a slender brocade box in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and motioned to Bailey Hongzhuang to open it. Bailey girl, you have helped us a lot by coming to the Qing dynasty. We don't have much to give you, but this inscription pen is for you. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled and then waved her hand again and again. This can't be. I can't accept it. Bailey girl, the three of us are your elders. Why can't you accept a small gift? Quickly accept it. Bailey Hongzhuang opened the brocade box and saw a black translucent inscription pen in the brocade box. Using her mental power, Bailey Hongzhuang could feel how good the performance of this inscription pen was. With such an inscription pen in hand, the success rate of her inscriptions would increase a lot. Chapter 890. An inscription pen was very important to an inscription master, just like an alchemy furnace was important to an alchemist. A good inscription pen was very rare, and the inscription pen given to her by Ji Yunma was undoubtedly very precious. It was a rare product. For an inscription master, this inscription pen is very important. Keep it well. Ji Yunma said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth. Everyone knew how precious this inscription pen was. She really couldn't accept it like this. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to say something, Qin Qingwu directly waved her hand to stop Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey girl, don't refuse. The three of us all treat you as our granddaughter. It's normal for a grandfather to give his granddaughter something. If you refuse, it means that you don't want to treat us as your grandfather. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was touched. Bai Jingtian and the other two were really good to her. Thank you very much. Bailey Hongzhuang's face burst into a smile. If she still refused at this time, it would hurt the three seniors' hearts. After seeing this scene, Di Baichen's eyes also showed a faint smile. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and others were talking, Chu Jio and the other two also came to the inn. After Chu Jio and the other two explained the purpose of their visit, Huan Chuyo's face also changed a little. Since the incident in the finals, he had figured out a lot of things. All the false reputation had no meaning, and he had also made up his mind to never come to the Qing dynasty again in the future. You mean that Nangong Aochin is seriously ill because Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned him? Huan Chuyu didn't believe it. If Bailey Hongzhuang really poisoned him, Nangong Aochin should have said a long time ago. However, he hadn't received any news until now. Maybe it was another framing by the royal family. Chu Jio nodded. However, this is what Nangong Aochin said when he was awake. It shouldn't be wrong. I don't know. Huan Chuyu shook his head, a cold expression on his face. Currently, he didn't want to have anything to do with the imperial family. Just hearing the two words imperial family was enough to make him unhappy. Elder Huan, why don't you ask Bailey Hongzhuang? Chu Jio said awkwardly. Bailey Hongzhuang is still recuperating from her injuries. If you are here purely to show concern for Hongzhuang's injuries or to catch up with me, I welcome you. But if you are here to speak for the royal family, then you can leave now. Huan Chio's face turned cold. As the vice principal, what he couldn't accept the most was others threatening his students' lives. The actions of the royal family of the Qing dynasty had crossed his bottom line. Whether Nangong Aochin died or not, it had nothing to do with him. Seeing Huan Chuyo's resolute attitude, Chu Jio and the other two felt very helpless. This was not out of their expectations. Elder Huan, we have been friends with you for so many years. I believe you also understand. Chen Yu said slowly. We are definitely on your side in this matter. It's just that we have been in the Qing dynasty for so many years. If the emperor asked us to come, we couldn't do anything. We just want to ask Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang doesn't agree, we won't force it. What do you think? Chapter 891. I'll let you see Bailey Hongzhuang. As for the rest, I'll leave it to Bailey Hongzhuang to decide. Huan Chuyu said slowly. He had known Chu Jio and the other two for many years. He also had a certain understanding of the three of them. He believed that they only came because they had no choice. After all, this was a problem between the Kangling College and the royal family of the Qing dynasty. He did not want to hurt the friendship of many years. After this farewell in the Qing dynasty, he was afraid that he would not be able to see these old friends again. Listening to Huan Chuyo's words, Chu Jio and the other two also breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Huan Chuyu was still reasonable and was not as bad as they thought. Good. Chu Jio nodded. No matter what decision Bailey Hongzhuang makes, we will respect her. Huan Chuyo's face looked a little better. In this inter-college competition, as the vice principal, he only felt that he owed Bailey Hongzhuang. He was not willing to let Bailey Hongzhuang suffer any more harm. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang made the decision by herself. He also did not want Bailey Hongzhuang to make a decision that she did not want because of his friendship with Chu Jio and the others. Huan Chu walked into Bailey Hongzhuang's room with Chu Jio and the other two. After Bai Jingtian and the other two saw that Chu Jio and the other two had also come, there was a hint of surprise in their eyes. I didn't expect you to also come to visit Hongzhuang, Ji Yuma said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang had only been in the Qing dynasty for a short time, but she had conquered too many people with her strength. Chu Jio and the other two were also surprised, but after hearing Ji Yunma's question, their faces changed slightly. Bailey girl, how is her injury now? Chu Jio took out a white porcelain bottle and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. This pill is very helpful for healing. Thank you, Elder Chu. My injury is no longer a problem. Bailey Hongzhuang said quickly. She was also surprised by the appearance of Chu Jio and the other two. The reason why Bai Jingtian and the other two came was that she had a very good relationship with them. As for Chu Jio and the other two, although they had a certain intersection during the alchemy competition, they were not familiar with each other. She thought that they came here more to visit the vice principal. After all, the vice principal and they had known each other for many years. In a few days, they would leave the Qing dynasty and it would not be easy to meet them. When Xiaji Qing and the others saw that so many masters had come to visit Bailey Hongzhuang, their eyes were filled with envy. Hongzhuang is really amazing to be able to get so many masters to come and see her. If others were to see her, I'm afraid they would be shocked. Xia Jiqing's face was full of smiles. Hongzhuang was really her idol. Everything was so extraordinary. Lu Qingyue's eyes showed a bit of envy. Bailey Hongzhuang was now the hero of the Kangling College. Almost everyone was very good to Bailey Hongzhuang. Even the masters who were rarely seen on weekdays rushed to visit Bailey Hongzhuang. Such an honor was really not something that ordinary people could have. Hongzhuang is not an ordinary person. When several masters rushed to accept Hongzhuang as a disciple, the students of Lingyin College were already shocked. Zhang Yinfeng said with a smile. She was also a woman, but she did not feel jealous of Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 892. After some greetings, Chu Jio and the other two were a little hesitant. They didn't expect Bai Jingtian and the other two to be here. They knew the temperament of Bai Jingtian and the others very well. If they explained the purpose of their visit, they were afraid that they would be despised. Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed that Chu Jio and the other two were hesitant to speak. It seemed that Chu Jio and the other two didn't come just to visit, but had something to say. "Old Huan, what's the matter?" Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, her dark eyes flashing with wisdom. She already had some guesses, but she didn't know if her guesses were accurate. Now that Nangong Aochin situation was getting more and more serious, she was full of confidence in her poison. Except for her, there was no one else who could cure it. She believed that Nangong Oji was now impatient. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Chu Jio and the other two looked at each other. Since they came with this purpose, there was no point in hesitating. "Bailey girl, we heard that you gave His Royal Highness the crown, Prince Apil, in the finals." Chun Yu asked slowly. As Chun Yu's voice fell, the atmosphere in the room, which was quite lively and happy, changed. Everyone's eyes condensed on Chun Yu, not understanding what Chun Yu meant. "Chun Yu, what do you mean by asking this?" Bai Jingtian frowned. He had also heard the news that Nangong Aochin was seriously ill, but he didn't know that this matter had something to do with Bailey Hongzhuang. However, regardless of whether this matter was done by Bailey Hongzhuang or not, there was no evidence. Did Chun Yu come this time to ask for a punitive expedition? "Old Bai, I don't mean anything. I just want to ask Bailey Hongzhuang if there is an antidote." As soon as these words came out, Xia Jiqing and the others all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. Previously, they were very happy about the news of Nangong Aochin's sudden illness. They only thought that Nangong Aochin had committed many crimes and was doomed to self-destruction. Naturally, he got into trouble. They didn't expect that all of this was caused by Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She knew that this news could not be hidden forever. Nangong Aochin would definitely reveal it. However, she did not expect that Chu Jio and the others would come to ask her for the antidote. Di Baichen's face turned cold. He had to take Nangong Aochin's life, but he didn't do it immediately because Bailey Hongzhuang had already poisoned him. Now, the royal family even dared to question Bailey Hongzhuang. This was something that he could not forgive. "Elder Chun, have you lost your mind?" Ji Yanma's eyes flashed with confusion. From the beginning to the end, this matter was instigated by the royal family. Are you now the royal family's lobbyist? If you are here for the royal family, I think you don't have to say anything else. Just leave. There was also a touch of disgust in Qin Qingwu's eyes. They had always been focused on studying inscriptions and had no good feelings for the royal family. They regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as their granddaughter. The royal family's approach undoubtedly made them very unhappy. At this time, Chun Yu and the others actually came to ask Bailey Hongzhuang for the antidote. Wasn't this looking for trouble? Chapter 893. Elder Bai, Elder Ji, Elder Qin, this matter isn't what you think. Chun Yu explained helplessly. We only came to inquire because of His Majesty's orders. We don't have any other intentions. Following Chun Yu's words, the tense atmosphere eased up a bit. At least, Chun Yu and the other two weren't here to denounce her. Bailey girl, His Highness the Crown Prince has fallen into chaos. Can you hand over the antidote? Chu Jio asked. Nangong Aochin had suffered a lot in the past few days. If they wanted to take revenge on Nangong Aochin, they had achieved their goal. Bailey Hongzhuang, you could decide on this matter yourself. Don't worry about anything else. Huan Chuyu spoke slowly. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to do something she didn't want to do because of him. If it wasn't for his many years of friendship with Chun Yu and the others, he would have directly refused. What did Nangong Aochin have to do with him? Now that Nangong Aochin was seriously ill and came to find them, the imperial family wanted to use all of their deaths as stepping stones for Nangong Aochin. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Huan Chuyu in astonishment. She thought that Huan Chuyu brought the three alchemists here because he had the same thoughts as them. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. She vaguely understood that Huan Chuyu wasn't willing to do it. The poison was indeed planted by me, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Hearing that, everyone's expression changed. Bailey Hongzhuang actually admitted it so straightforwardly. Her elegant and refined face was calm and indifferent. From the beginning, Bailey Hongzhuang had never planned to hide it. Since Nangong Aochin wanted her dead, she naturally wouldn't let him live happily. However, I don't have the antidote. From the moment she created this poison, she didn't plan to cure anyone. If it wasn't because she really wanted Nangong Aochin to die, she wouldn't have chosen to poison him. From the moment she fed Nangong Aochin this pill, Nangong Aochin was destined to die. What is the meaning of this? Lin Hao was a little surprised. He did not understand if Bailey Hongzhuang did not have the antidote or was unwilling to take out the antidote. Since I've decided to poison him, I naturally want him to die. So, why would I concoct the antidote? Bailey Hongzhuang's rhetorical question made Chu Jio and the others fall into silence. After thinking about it carefully, they found that Bailey Hongzhuang's words made some sense. The function of poison was to kill people. Bailey Hongzhuang obviously wanted to kill Nangong Aochin, so why would she make an antidote? Now that you're safe and sound, why don't you turn hostility into friendship and hand over the antidote? You'll have one less enemy, Chu Jio advised earnestly. This was not something she wanted to see. Elder Chu, you're wrong. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly, but her lips curled into a devilish smile. It's not that the imperial family didn't want to kill us, but they didn't have the ability. That's why we're still alive now has nothing to do with the imperial family. If it wasn't for Di Beichen's appearance, we would have disappeared from this world long ago. As for whether I kill Nangong Aochin or not, it's also my decision. If the imperial family has the ability, Nangong Aochin naturally won't die. However, if they don't have the ability, then what does it have to do with me? Chapter 894. Even if she handed over the antidote, the royal family would not be grateful to her for this. On the contrary, because what she did left an indelible stain on the royal family. The royal family of the Qing dynasty was destined to oppose her. In this case, why should she cultivate an enemy to make herself unhappy? Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's expression changed a little. They only felt that what Bailey Hongzhuang said was very reasonable. Even Chu Jio and the others, who had already thought of an excuse, were speechless after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, because Bailey Hongzhuang had already seen through all of this. Di Beichen's eyes were full of appreciation. His wife's wisdom was really not something that ordinary people could have. She did not have the slightest bit of soft-heartedness and saved a lot of trouble. Xia Jiqing and the others were also amazed. They did not expect Hongzhuang to be so domineering at this time, making people unable to find any reason to refute. Clap, clap. Bai Jingtian applauded directly. He was also amazed by Bailey Hongzhuang's remarks. Little girl Bailey, well said. Bailey Hongzhuang's character was very similar to his character. If he did not like someone, he would not care about anything else. As an inscriptionist, even the imperial power could not restrain him. At worst, he would change to another dynasty. The world was so big. Was there no place for him to go? Ji Yanma and Qin Qingwu also had a look of agreement. If it were a girl of the same age, facing such imperial power, they would not have the courage to make such a decision. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's determination really made their eyes light up. After all, Shengxian continent was a world where everyone relied on their own ability. Chu Jio and the others looked at each other. They did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so decisive. At this point, it seemed that whatever they said would be of no use. Old Chun, since Bailey Hongzhuang has made a decision, you don't have to force it. Huan Chuyu slowly spoke. Bailey Hongzhuang's decision did not exceed his expectations. Furthermore, this was the most correct decision. Thinking of this, Huan Chuyo's gaze couldn't help but land on Lu Qinyue's body. Lu Qinyue's temperament was too soft. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, she lacked a bit of decisiveness. At least, if this kind of thing fell on Lu Qinyue wouldn't know what to do. Chu Jio and the other two nodded slightly. They had already done what they should have done. This incident could only be said to be the consequence of the imperial family's own wrong decision. In that case, we'll take our leave first, Chu Jio said slowly. Because of this matter, their relationship with Huan Chuyu and the others had always been somewhat awkward. Perhaps it would be better if they changed their identities and came again next time. However, just as the three of them were about to leave, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, "Masters, it's best that you don't get too close to Nangong Aochin." As soon as her voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze. She had already said what she needed to say. However, after Chu Jio and the others heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, deep shock appeared in their eyes. What did this mean? Don't get too close to Nangong Aochin? Could it be that there was something wrong with Nangong Aochin's illness? Thinking of this, the three of their faces suddenly changed. It seemed that they had still thought of this situation too simply. Chapter 895. Compared with the shock in everyone's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang looked very indifferent. She had never been merciful to her enemies. Nangong Oji wanted to bury the entire team of the Kanglan College because she had ruined Nangong Aochin's plan to become famous. She had always been good at giving people a taste of their own medicine. Since Nangong Oji had decided to do this, she would naturally not be polite. However, in the end, she stood on the side of the winner. Di Baichen looked at the indifferent Bailey Hongzhuang, and there was a light of appreciation and admiration in his eyes. His wife had always done things in a way that no one could be picky about. This kind of poison, even he couldn't help but be shocked. Xia Jiqing and the others couldn't help but mourn for Nangong Aochin and the others. They could have offended anyone, but they had to offend Hongzhuang. This kind of consequence could only be said that they had brought it upon themselves. Bai Jingtian and the other two were very calm about this. They had lived for most of their lives. What kind of things had they not seen? This kind of thing was very normal for them who abhorred evil. There was no cruelty or no cruelty. The position had already determined everything. After Chu Jio and the other two left the inn, the horror in their hearts still did not disappear. Because this was really too amazing. With Bailey Hongzhuang's age and skills, being able to do this was enough to prove that Bailey Hongzhuang was not simple. This time, the royal family's decision was really wrong. Now in this situation, we have no other way. Lin Hao said slowly. They had done their best. Chu Jio nodded slightly. Let's tell this news to the emperor. As for the rest, it is no longer within the scope of our control. They just want to ask because of the care of the royal family over the years. They had done their best. After all, even the royal family could not force them. The royal family really made a wrong decision this time, and the relationship between the three colleges has been affected as a result. Chu Jio sighed faintly. This might be fate. If the college exchange meeting had not suddenly been held in advance, such a thing would not have happened. Jian Qingxiu and Tsang Hongshi's mood was also very complicated when the academy exchange meet came to an end. This result was not expected by them. Originally, the college exchange meeting was just to suppress the Kanglan College. Now that the Kanglan College had directly withdrawn, they did not know what to do. After seeing the strong attitude of the royal family, Jian Qingxiu had a bad premonition. Now everyone thought that the Lingyin College was the royal family's college. In the future, the way to the royal family would be more and more. Song Hongshi's attitude had also changed a bit. It was undoubtedly good that Lingyin College could have its current strength, but it was not a good thing to lose the initiative of the college. He had always felt that Jian Qingxiu's approach was beneficial and harmless. It could increase the academy's influence and make him famous. But now, it seemed that the situation was not as optimistic as they thought. He needed to think about it carefully. Jian Qingxiu could no longer withdraw, but he still had a chance to withdraw. Chapter 896. After learning the result from Chu Jio and the other two, Nangong Oji's face turned ghastly. Although he had expected such an outcome, he still felt that there was a glimmer of possibility. After all, the power of the royal family could not be underestimated. He did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so decisive. In this case, he had no other choice. However, Chu Jio's last reminder stunned him. Stay away from Nangong Aochen? Did this mean that the poison in Nangong Aochen's body was still contagious? When Nangong Oji heard the news, he only felt that it was too unbelievable. He had never heard of the existence of such a poison, and he did not believe that a poison master could concoct such a poison. Otherwise, who would dare to offend a poison master? Once poisoned, the consequences would be the extermination of one's family. Chu Jio and the other two did not say anything more about Nangong Oji's attitude. They had already said what they needed to say, and it was up to Nangong Oji whether to believe it or not. In fact, Chu Jio and the other two also had a skeptical attitude about this matter. They had never heard of a poison with such an effect, but Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was very serious and did not seem to be fake at all. If this was said from someone else's mouth, they would certainly not believe it, but this was said from the mouth of Bailey Hongzhuang, and they quietly had a little more confidence. It was not for any other reason, but only because of Bailey Hongzhuang. So far, they had seen too many unbelievable things from Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's ability was beyond their imagination. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang did not need to lie to them. Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was very decisive. She just wanted Nangong Aochen to die. If it was only for this reason, Bailey Hongzhuang could have used a poison that would immediately kill Nangong Aochen, and there was no need for him to struggle for so long. There were two possibilities for this. First, Bailey Hongzhuang wanted Nangong Aochen to be tortured to death. Second, it was the possibility that Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned. Only when Nangong Aochen was constantly poisoned would others continue to come into contact with him. In this way, the possibility of others being infected would greatly increase. No matter which possibility it was, they couldn't help but shudder. Obviously, offending Bailey Hongzhuang was a very unwise move. Bai Jingtian and the others did not stay in the inn for long. After instructing Bailey Hongzhuang to rest well, they left. As long as they knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's injuries were not serious, they were relieved. Xia Jiqing and the others also left, leaving only Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in the room. Di Beichen tucked Bailey Hongzhuang in. His fair and handsome face was full of concern. So many people have come see you. Do you feel tired? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. My injuries have improved a lot. Don't treat me as a particularly fragile patient. These have no effect on me. Your husband can't help but worry about you. Di Beichen's mouth was filled with a smile. His wife was really strong. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was sweet. It was rare to have such a time with Di Beichen. She also felt very happy. When you return to the sect this time, has everything been solved? You also got the 9th grade purple Ganoderma? Chapter 897. Di Beichen nodded slightly. That's right. I've already got my hands on the 9th rank purple Zoysha. Looking at Di Beichen's calm and simple expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with emotion. She believed that solving the sex problem and getting the 9th rank purple Zoysha wasn't an easy task. However, Di Beichen was able to handle it so well. From Di Beichen's nonchalant attitude, it was as if he had solved a simple problem. However, she understood that this problem wasn't so easy to solve. Otherwise, Di Beichen wouldn't have needed to go there personally. She had a feeling that as long as Di Beichen was there, all the problems would be solved. As long as he was there, everything could be solved. I believe you must be exhausted from rushing back this time. Her exquisite face was full of concern and heartache. Everyone only knew that Di Beichen's identity was extraordinary, but they didn't know that it was also a kind of pressure. It was precisely because of his unusual identity that he had to bear far more than others. Today, Di Beichen was always by her side, so he was under a lot of pressure. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's heartache, Di Beichen's heart softened. His right hand slowly grasped Bailey Hongzhuang's soft hand, his handsome eyes full of tenderness. I'm not tired. As long as I see you, I won't be tired. Hearing Di Beichen's sweet words, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the seriousness in Di Beichen's eyes. The smile on her lips was full of happiness. But, wifey, between you and Mo Yunjue, there was a trace of nervousness in his deep eyes. He didn't want to ask, but Mo Yunjue's attitude that day really made him feel threatened. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Di Beichen without saying a word, and a smile emerged in her heart. For the past few days, Di Beichen had not asked her about Mo Yunjue. It seemed that he could not hold it in any longer. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, Di Beichen became even more nervous. He was afraid that his question would make Bailey Hongzhuang feel that he did not trust him. Although he had already sent He Mu to investigate Mo Yunjue, what he wanted to know more was his wife's attitude. Nervousness was an emotion that Di Beichen had never felt before. He would only feel this way when he was facing Bailey Hongzhuang. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings were too important to him. Because he cared too much, he would be nervous. In the past, he would have found this kind of emotion very funny. But now, he was immersed in it and could not extricate himself. Looking at Di Beichen's nervous expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slowly revealed a trace of a smile. Mo Yunjue and I are just friends. Nothing else. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. Indeed, she had always treated Mo Yunjue as a friend. Apart from that, there was no romantic feelings. She was very clear that from the moment Di Beichen walked into her heart, Di Beichen was the person she would spend the rest of her life with. And Di Beichen's kindness to her, she saw it with her own eyes. She had never been a greedy person and had never been a fickle person. As long as there was someone like Di Beichen who treated her with sincerity, that was enough. Chapter 898. When I was in the Luoyin Mountains, I had a chance to meet Mo Yunjue, and then when I came to the Qing dynasty, I happened to meet Mo Yunjue again. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a smile. With Di Beichen's level of excellence, he was still worried about his love rival. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's teasing gaze, Di Beichen's eyes also changed a bit. If it was not Bailey Hongzhuang, he would not care if it was another person. His various emotions naturally changed after meeting Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang's every frown and smile affected his heart. All along, he knew that he was good enough, but in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, he did not have such arrogance. Because Bailey Hongzhuang was the person in Di Beichen's life. It was precisely because of this that all his emotions were tied to Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so specific and calm, all the worries in Di Beichen's heart disappeared. I'm just a bit curious about Mo Yunjue's origin. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's teasing eyes, Di Beichen pretended to be indifferent. He was a man, but he was nervous because of this kind of thing. It was indeed, well, it was damaging to a man's demeanor. However, in the eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen felt that Di Beichen was more cute. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be serious and nodded. Indeed, it's a bit strange. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's smile, Di Beichen narrowed his eyes. His wife had become bolder now. She even dared to tease him now. In the next moment, Di Beichen's face slowly approached Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen's handsome face approaching her little by little. At close distance, she could even feel Di Beichen's warm breath. The smile in her eyes gradually disappeared, and her pretty face was quietly covered with a touch of red. Until the tip of Di Beichen's nose touched the tip of her nose, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but speak. What are you going to do? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's nervous look, Di Beichen also smiled. His face slightly turned and stopped at Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. Wife, you're still so shy. When these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang's body stiffened, and she looked at Di Beichen in embarrassment. Di Beichen, this guy was really bad. Di Beichen chuckled. His wife's shy nature had not changed at all. I just like to see my wife's shy look. Di Beichen blinked. His handsome face now revealed a trace of devilish charm and roguishness, filled with an indescribable charm. Bailey Hongzhuang bit her lips. In this aspect, she was indeed not Di Beichen's opponent, but she still had other ways. I want to rest. You can leave. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin and said. Seeing this, Di Beichen's eyes narrowed. Wife, are you angry? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her chin, her expression unchanged. I'm tired. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. His wife was so cute even when she pretended to be angry. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was joking because he had already seen the smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. In the next moment, Di Beichun sat closer to Bailey Hongzhuang. Wife, why don't we rest together? Your husband is also a little tired. Di Beichun. Hurry up and leave. Chapter 899. After Di Beichen left, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher all gathered in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, their pairs of watery round eyes flashing with a mischievous smile. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed slightly. What a mistake. Next time when Di Beichen came, she should have put these three little guys into the chaos ring first. Her wisdom as a master was ruined by Di Beichen. The three beasts blinked their small eyes, their faces full of smiles. When Di Beichen was here, the atmosphere was really different. If you look at me like that again, you won't have any food to eat tonight. Seeing that the three beasts did not show any signs of restraining their gazes for a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but use her trump card. Fortunately, these three beasts still had weaknesses. Sure enough, when Bailey Hongzhuang said this, the expressions of the three beasts also changed. They immediately withdrew their gazes and did not dare to continue to look like this. For a foodie, this was the most unacceptable thing for them. Xiao He and Xiao Bai came in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, their watery eyes flashing with a curious light. Master, what is the effect of the poison you gave Nangong Aochen? From what their master had said before, they only knew that this poison was very powerful, so they wanted to know what kind of poison it was. This is a kind of infectious poison. The effect is very terrible. Nangong Aochen's illness will last for at least a month, and people who often come into contact with him during this period will be easily infected. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. Thinking back, when she had first concocted this poison, it had also surprised the old guys in her family. Usually, this poison had always been used by her as a last resort and would not be used at any time. This time, the actions of the Qing dynasty's royal family had indeed angered her. At that time, on the battle stage, she knew very well that although she fought desperately, the possibility of success was still very small. It was precisely because of this that she only wanted the entire Qing dynasty's royal family to be buried with her. If she wanted Nangong Aochen to die, there were many kinds of poisons that could make Nangong Aochen die suddenly. If she wanted to torture Nangong Aochen, there were also many ways. However, she chose this way to make the entire royal family pay a huge price. Now that things had passed, the situation was still vivid in her mind, and she did not intend to change it. Hearing this, the three beasts looked at each other. Master's means were really extraordinary. Once they offended their master, the end was really miserable. The Qing dynasty's royal family was asking for trouble, but they deserved it. Bailey Hongzhuang's recovery was very fast. Under her own treatment, and Di Beichen's stubbornly fed her pills, her recovery was. Beichen S's, she said, Hongzhuang S. Of Qing S. They's, of them, S. They of them, ses. Now that Nangong Aochen's condition was getting more and more serious, they could also feel that the royal family was watching them more and more. For everyone, although this had no effect on them, they felt very uncomfortable. Hearing this, Di Beichun frowned slightly. There was some concern in his eyes. Don't try to be brave. Let's heal first before we leave. Chapter 900. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was so resolute, Di Beichun also thought for a moment. He understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was more worried about everyone at the moment. He had been with Bailey Hongzhuang for so long, and he had a certain understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang's character. Because of himself, Bailey Hongzhuang was obviously not willing to let everyone endure. Is your injury really okay? His dark and deep eyes flashed with worry. The road is bumpy. If you are affected by this, I will be distressed. With Di Beichen's voice falling, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart softened, and a trace of sweetness filled her heart. She understood how much Di Beichun cared about her. Don't worry, I'm sure there will be no problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was firm. Although the road was a little bumpy, it would not have too much impact. Now that her injury had recovered a lot, leaving the Qing dynasty would not be a problem. Then, I'll go and tell everyone. Di Beichun touched Bailey Hongzhuang's hair, and his handsome eyebrows showed a bit of warmth. It was precisely because of Bailey Hongzhuang's character that he had to be distressed. When Di Beichun told everyone about this decision, everyone also walked into Bailey Hongzhuang's room. Hongzhuang, your injury has not healed. Let's wait until your injury is completely healed before we leave. Xia Jiqing's face showed a worried look. Although the eyes of the royal family recently made them feel a little helpless, with Di Beichun here, they did not have to worry about the royal family doing anything that should not be done. If this affected Bailey Hongzhuang's injury, this was something they did not want to see. Jiqing is right. You don't have to worry about us. It's the same where we cultivate. Cui Haoyan smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang had done a lot for them. They could not let Bailey Hongzhuang be affected because of them. Although Gong Shaoqing and others did not speak, their eyes showed the same concern. Looking at everyone's concerned look, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was warm, and she smiled and said, "My injury is not a big problem. You don't have to worry about me." In the end, everyone agreed with Bailey Hongzhuang's decision. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had become the leader of their team. No matter what choice Bailey Hongzhuang made was made, they would support her. Di Beichun and the others immediately began to prepare. They were going to leave tomorrow, so they had to prepare their horses. Seeing the movements of Di Beichun and the others, the mood of the royal family was not calm. Once Bailey Hongzhuang left, then Nangong Aochen would really have no way. Nangong Oji's face was gloomy to the extreme. Nangong Aochen was his most beloved son, and he wanted to force Bailey Hongzhuang to stay countless times. However, when he thought of Di Beichun's identity, he fell into helplessness. He really could not afford to offend the young lord of Tiangang's sect. Otherwise, once Di Beichun was angry, maybe the entire royal family would be involved. He could not afford to pay this price. But now, looking at Nangong Aochen's figure getting thinner day by day, his mood fell to the bottom. Who would have thought that, as the ruler of a country, he would have this kind of helplessness? Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had left, he had no chance at all. Chapter 901. Just as Di Beichun sent people to prepare to leave, Mo Yunjue also came to the inn. Seeing Mo Yunjue again, Di Beichun looked more indifferent than before. He was not a man who lacked confidence. On the contrary, he had absolute confidence in his own strength. At the beginning, it was Mo Yunjue's sudden appearance that caught him off guard. Therefore, he was a little confused. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had undoubtedly given him a reassuring pill, he was also magnanimous. Seeing the appearance of Mo Yunjue, Xia Jiqing and others also showed a smile on their faces. Since coming to the Qing dynasty, Mo Yunjue had helped them a lot, especially in the end. He was an enemy of the royal family for them. To be precise, it was for Bailey Hongzhuang. It was precisely because of Mo Yunjue's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang that everyone's expressions were a bit strange. After all, they were very clear about the relationship between Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. When rivals meet, they would be especially jealous. Whether it was Di Beichun or Mo Yunjue, they all felt that they were good people, but this kind of situation could only be solved by themselves. "Are you leaving tomorrow?" Mo Yunjue, who was dressed in black, was introverted and handsome. His expression was indifferent and a bit free and easy. When he asked this question, Di Beichun was not embarrassed at all. Di Beichun's attitude was also indifferent. "Yes, we have stayed in the Qing dynasty for a while. It is time to leave." "Hongzhuang's injury has recovered?" Mo Yunju asked. According to the situation he saw that day, Bailey Hongzhuang's injury should take a lot of time to recover. Not fully recovered, but most of it has recovered. Xia Jiqing and others looked at each other. They were very worried that Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue would fight. After all, the identity of these two people was known to everyone. However, the situation in front of them was obviously different from the situation they imagined. These two men were very free and easy, as if they were just ordinary friends, which made them feel strange. "I will go and see Hong Zhuang," Mo Yunjue said. Hearing this, Di Beichen's expression still did not change. He opened the door and walked into the house with Mo Yunjue. He had never been a stingy person. Mo Yunjue's help to Hong Zhuang during this time was real. He was not willing to let Hong Zhuang think that he was stingy. After Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue entered the house together, Xia Zhiqing and the others also exploded. "My God, I didn't expect the two of them to be so peaceful. I was worried that they would fight." Xia Zhiqing patted her chest, her eyes full of worry. Zhang Yinfeng nodded in agreement. Just that day, when Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue blocked in front of Hong Zhuang, I already knew that things were not good. This kind of peace made me even more surprised. Cui Haoyin and Gong Shaoqing looked at each other. As men, they felt it more clearly. The calmness between Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue was just a pretense. As early as the first time these two people met, a tit-for-tat momentum had already spread. It was just that the two of them were able to control their emotions and did not show it. I don't think so. The two of them have always been competing. Men care a lot about this kind of thing. Bai Jinyu said slowly. Chapter 902. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Mo Yunjue, her beautiful face was filled with a smile. She knew everything that Mo Yunjue had done for her, and she was grateful to Mo Yunjue. No matter what, Mo Yunjue being able to do this for her was already a great favor. If Mo Yunjue needed her help in the future, she would definitely not refuse. "You're here." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Mo Yunjue nodded slightly. His eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's face that was no longer pale. It seemed that these days, Bailey Hongzhuang had recovered well. Di Beichun sat quietly and did not speak. This was the time when Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue communicated. "Seeing that you're in good condition, I'm relieved." Mo Yunjue's eyebrows rippled with a smile, but his deep eyes flashed with a complicated light. "I heard that you are leaving the Qing dynasty tomorrow." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "We have stayed in the Qing dynasty for a long time. It's time to leave. It's good to leave early. Now that Nangong Aochen's illness is getting worse, he shouldn't be able to hold on for long. If you continue to stay here, there will always be a trace of danger. Once you leave, there will be a wide open sky." Mo Yunjue said slowly. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Her white and beautiful face showed a trace of worry. "You're not going to leave the Qing dynasty?" She did not know what the identity of Mo Yunjue was, but she could also predict that Mo Yunjue's identity would not be simple. Otherwise, after experiencing the original incident, Mo Yunjue would not be safe and sound in the Qing dynasty until now. Perhaps it was because of this that her guilt towards Mo Yunjue was not so deep. "Are you worried about me?" Mo Yunjue raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a touch of surprise in his eyes. After hearing Mo Yunjue's words, Di Beichen's right hand holding the teacup unconsciously tightened. This guy really did not know how to behave. Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised, but still nodded. "We are friends. I naturally care about you." Mo Yunjue had helped her so much, and she also regarded Mo Yunjue as a respected friend. Now that Mo Yunjue was in danger, she was naturally worried. Di Beichen's hand that was holding the teacup quietly relaxed a bit, and the corners of his mouth hooked up in a happy arc. His Hong Zan, he liked her so. Mo Yunjue's eyes gradually changed, but his smile was still free and easy. "Don't worry, I will be fine." Bailey Hongzhuang looked deeply at Mo Yunjue. She could feel the confidence in Mo Yunjue when he said this. Thinking about it, Mo Yunjue was right. She really did not need to worry. "That's good. Thank you for your help these days. If you need my help in the future, just let me know." Bailey Hongzhuang's black phoenix eyes were filled with sincerity and clarity. She was really grateful to Mo Yunjue for his generous help these days. If it was not for Mo Yunjue's help, the situation would have been worse. Mo Yunjue stared at the pair of black, bright, and clear eyes. His eyes, which were as deep as a black hole, also flashed with a hint of emotion. Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. "Okay, His beautiful and thin lips slowly raised, revealing a hint of sexiness and wickedness. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled gently. Perhaps this friendship came a little strangely, but it really existed. I wish you a safe journey. We will meet again. Chapter 903. Bailey Hongzhuang got up to send him off, but was rejected by Mo Yunjue. Bailey Hongzhuang's injuries were now better for her to recuperate and not move as much as possible. However, when Mo Yunjue turned to leave and passed by Di Beichun noticed Mo Yunjue's expression and immediately followed Mo Yunjue out. Outside the house, Xia Jiqing and the others saw Mo Yunjue and Di Beichun come out together and walk downstairs without saying a word. There was a strange color in their eyes towards Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue. Why did they have a feeling that they couldn't understand at all? Logically speaking, these two people should be like fire and water when they meet, but looking at this situation, it didn't seem like it at all. After Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the house, she saw everyone gathered here. Her clear eyes were filled with a strange color. What are you all doing here? Xia Jiqing went to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Hongzhuang, what did you say to Mo Yunjue before? Nothing. I just wanted to thank him for helping us during this time. Bailey Hongzhuang replied indifferently. Xia Jiqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. From Bailey Hongzhuang's frank eyes and attitude, she couldn't see the slightest bit of trickery and concealment. It seemed that they were thinking too much. I think the relationship between Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue is not good. Now that the two of them are going out together, they won't find a place to have good fight, right? Zhang Yunfeng wondered. As Zhang Yunfeng's voice fell, Cui Haoyin, Gong Xiaoqing, Dongfang Yu, and Bai Junyu all laughed. Women's thinking and men's thinking were different. They could feel the tit-for-tat between Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue, but the two of them were very outstanding. At this time, it was impossible for them to do such an irrational thing. As for a fight, it might be possible in the future, but now it was absolutely impossible. You two don't have to worry about it. This kind of thing won't happen. Cui Haoyin patted Zhang Yunfeng's little head and laughed. Zhang Yunfeng and Xia Jiqing looked at each other. They didn't understand what the four men were laughing about. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Dongfang Yu. She clearly saw a completely different temperament from Dongfang Yu. It was as if he had been reborn. His spirit had improved compared to the past. Obviously, he had broken. He had become more. And he was more, and his mind was more tenacious. Just as the teacher had said, as long as Dongfang Yu could recover from this blow, he would become a brand new Dongfang Yu, which would be very beneficial for his future. Obviously, the present now, he had already felt. Dongfang Yu, have you completely recovered? Bailey Hongzhuang's dark and bright eyes flashed with surprise. Dongfang Yu nodded slightly, his eyes as bright as the stars. I'm fine now. You were worried about me before. As long as you're fine, it's good. Your temperament has changed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. The change in a person's heart would also have a certain change in their image. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, Xia Jiqing nodded again and again. Yes, I also feel it. Dongfang Yu has become more handsome than before. This time, I'm afraid that when Dongfang Yu goes back, the girls will scream even more, haha. Chapter 904. Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue walked out of the inn without a word. Neither of them were in a hurry. Di Beichun knew that Mo Yunjue had something to say to him, but he didn't know what Mo Yunjue wanted to say. The two of them walked straight to the first floor. Di Beichun followed Mo Yunjue into the private room, then said, "You can say whatever you want to say." Looking at Di Beichun's indifferent expression, Mo Yunjue's lips curved into a faint smile, but his dark eyes quietly filled with a trace of coldness. Di Beichun, since you want to be with Hongzhuang, then take good care of her and don't let her fall into danger. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows. Don't worry, this kind of thing won't happen again. He had already secretly vowed that he would never let this kind of thing happen again. When he thought about how Bailey Hongzhuang might have left him forever if he had come any later, he felt an indescribable sense of suffocation. He couldn't bear such a price, so this was the only time, and also the last time. Hearing Di Beichun's words, Mo Yunjue sneered, Looks like Hong Zhuang hasn't told you about that matter. Following Mo Yunjue's words, Di Beichun couldn't help but frown. What do you mean by that? Mo Yunjue sized up Di Beichun. I know that you've always been outstanding, but sometimes this isn't a good thing. Tell me clearly, what exactly is going on? Di Beichun's expression froze. He understood that Mo Yunjue was definitely not spouting nonsense. In that case, did something else happen while he was away? Bailey Hongzhuang had never mentioned this to him. So what exactly could it be? I've said before, Han Shilling's appearance was your downfall. If you can't handle Han Shilling well, I might be able to snatch Hong Zhuang away from you. Mo Yunjue slowly said. He understood Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings for Di Beichun, so he wouldn't disturb them. However, if Di Beichun didn't treat Bailey Hongzhuang well enough, then he wouldn't hold back. As soon as he said this, Di Beichun already noticed some clues. The last time he met Mo Yunjue also mentioned about Han Shilling, but he didn't take it to heart and only took it that it was just a casual remark. After all, he and Han Shilling had always been known as a match made in heaven. Now it seemed that things weren't that simple. Han Shilling has already made his move. He didn't hesitate to ask the people of Shitian Tower to do it. Moreover, he sent out 2 groups of assassins at once. It's obvious that he's determined to get Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yunjue's low voice carried a hint of warning. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say anything because she didn't want to make things difficult for Di Beichun. However, he wouldn't let Bailey Hongzhuang suffer such grievances. A layer of ripples appeared in his deep eyes, but Di Beichun's heart was in a perilous situation. If Mo Yunjue hadn't told him this news, he was afraid that he wouldn't know when he would have found out. He didn't doubt Mo Yunjue's words, because Mo Yunjue had no reason to lie to him. Are you sure it's Han Shilling? Di Beichun slowly said. When he thought of his little junior sister in the past, he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Chapter 905. Mo Yunjue's eyes were like a black hole that could hold 100 rivers into the sea. No one could see any clues. To him, only Bailey Hongzhuang was a special existence in this world. The other women were just pink skeletons. Even if he killed them, he wouldn't blink an eye. I won't let go. Di Beichun suddenly got up. He didn't even take a sip of the tea on the table and walked out. However, when he walked out of the private room, his low and determined voice reached Mo Yunjue's ears. I won't give you any chance. With that, Di Beichun walked out of the room without hesitation. Yes, he wouldn't give Mo Yunjue any chance to take advantage of him. He had been careless before, but he would make up for this mistake. He would take care of his wife himself. No one would understand what Bailey Hongzhuang meant to him. To him, there was only one Bailey Hongzhuang in this world. The only partner Di Beichun recognized in this life was only her. Mo Yunjue watched Di Beichun leave. The smile on his lips gradually disappeared. His eyes were dark without any light. He had always been a spy. No one had ever cared about his emotions. It didn't matter whether he was alive or dead. He didn't feel happy when he was alive, and he didn't feel pain when he died. And now, Bailey Hongzhuang was the only person who meant anything to him. He meant what he said. If Di Beichun didn't take good care of Bailey Hongzhuang, he wouldn't let him go. When Di Beichun returned to the inn, almost everyone could feel the low pressure coming from Di Beichun. Under the influence of this low pressure, everyone looked at each other in dismay. They had no idea what had happened. Sure enough, meeting a love rival is never a good thing. To make Di Beichun show such an expression, the situation is really serious. Xia Jiqing looked at Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Mo Yunjue was a good person, she hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could be with Di Beichun. Zhang Yinfeng also shrugged. I don't know what happened. It's better if we don't talk. Gong Xiaoqing, Dong Fangyu, Bai Junyu, and Cui Haoyan all ate without saying a word. This was a matter between Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't want to get involved. Bailey Hongzhuang could also feel the change in Di Beichun's mood, but she didn't know what Mo Yunjue and Di Beichun. Logically speaking, no matter what happened, Di Beichun shouldn't have become like this. Unless, thinking about it carefully, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly thought of a possibility. Di Beichun couldn't be angry with her, and Di Beichun's anger towards Mo Yunjue had no meaning. So, there was only one possibility: he was angry with her. After eliminating all the possibilities, there was only one thing left. Han Xiling. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say much and just continued to eat the rice in her bowl. She didn't want to tell Di Beichun about this matter. After all, this was a war between her and Han Xiling. Han Xiling had already dealt with her, and she was also full of coldness towards Han Xiling. If they met again in the future, as long as there was a chance, she wouldn't be soft-hearted. However, when Mo Yunjue told Di Beichun about this matter, the situation changed a bit. However, this was not a bad thing. She could understand Di Beichun's attitude earlier. Chapter 906. After the meal, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun returned to the house together. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at the closed door with some worry in their eyes. Mo Yunjue wouldn't have directly declared war on Di Beichun, right? Otherwise, Di Beichun's mood shouldn't be so bad. Xia Jiqing said with emotion. Dongfang Yu shook his head slightly. If it was just a declaration of war, with Di Beichun's temperament, he wouldn't be so angry. Now he had completely accepted that only excellent men like Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue were worthy of Bailey Hongzhuang, and he would become an even better man. Hearing this, Zhang Yinfeng was speechless. No way. He wouldn't be so angry even if it was a declaration of war. Then what did Mo Yunjue say to Di Beichun? I don't know. Cui Haoyan shook his head. A war between men is very terrible. You don't have to worry about it. Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang won't have a problem. Rest early. We'll leave tomorrow. Gong Xiaoqing looked at the crowd helplessly, but he also understood that it was because of everyone's concern for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun. Everyone looked at each other and felt that Gong Xiaoqing was right. There was no use for them to worry here. Bailey Hongzhuang had just entered the house when she was directly surrounded by Di Beichun and pressed against the door. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Di Beichun's handsome face quickly enlarged in her pupils, and her lips were blocked by Di Beichun. The cool touch was soft and domineering. This kiss was different from Di Beichun's usual gentleness. It was full of dominance and possessiveness, crushing her lips, tossing and turning, and absorbing her sweetness heartily. Bailey Hongzhuang's body stiffened, but she could feel Di Beichun's crazy and suppressed emotions. Her hands slowly wrapped around Di Beichun's neck, and her face was red and shy as she cooperated with Di Beichun. Di Beichun's violent and nervous mood slowly calmed down after feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's gentle response, but the desire in his eyes deepened. His wife made him have a feeling that he couldn't stop. Every time he got a little bit, he always wanted more. Her rose-like red lips were tender and alluring. Her crimson face was full of shyness and helplessness, and the white and faintly pink skin on her neck made him unable to extricate himself. In the next moment, Di Beichun directly carried Bailey Hongzhuang by the waist and carried her to the bed. As for the three beasties, they were already shy and didn't know what to do when they saw this scene. Such a passionate scene was really not suitable for children. The three beasties immediately entered the chaos ring and maintained the same posture, covering their eyes and facing the wall to reflect. Di Beichun gently kissed Bailey Hongzhuang's lips, and the tenderness in his eyes could almost melt everything. His wife could only be his. No one else could lay a finger on her. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were blurred as she looked at that handsome face, and her eyes were also full of tenderness. Di Beichun kissed her passionately, from her lips to every inch of her skin. That faint and charming fragrance made him deeply intoxicated. His big hand moved all the way down, and Bailey Hongzhuang was already in a daze. Everything was unfamiliar to her, and she couldn't bear to reject Di Beichun. Chapter 907. Feeling the changes in Bailey Hongzhuang's body, Di Beichun also noticed the flash of panic and nervousness in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was like a little white rabbit in his arms. She was so lovable, so at his mercy. Di Beichun found a trace of rationality. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was not mentally prepared, and his attack was indeed unexpected. He pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. Feeling Bailey Hongzhuang's trembling, his heart ached. Wife, you're the most important person to me. Di Beichen's voice was low, as if he was talking in his sleep. Never leave me. Bailey Hongzhuang leaned on Di Beichen's chest. Feeling the worry in his voice, she nodded slightly. I won't leave you. She did not know why Di Beichen was feeling this way, but she just wanted to reassure Di Beichen. Di Beichen hugged Bailey Hongzhuang tightly, but his movements were exceptionally gentle. He was too impulsive today. Hongzhuang's injuries were not completely healed yet. Wife, didn't assassin attack you before? Di Beichen's eyes regained their calmness. The reason why he lost control of his emotions was because he knew that Mo Yunjue's words were not wrong. If he did not handle the Han Shilling problem well, then he might really lose Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang had asked him this question before. He always felt that Han Shilling would not do such a thing, but if all this was true, then he had to take action. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and nodded slightly. That's right. Di Beichen already knew, so there was no need for her to hide it. In fact, she did not know enough about the assassin. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang admit it, Di Beichen's eyes darkened and his expression became cold. Wife, I didn't expect Shilling to do such a thing. Di Beichen's brows were twisted together. It seemed that the little junior sister in his heart was not the real one. He had never cared about what Han Shilling was hiding. In the past, he had been practicing with Han Shilling in the sect. At that time, Han Shilling clearly did not have such a scheming mind. He left Tiangang's sect for 3 years. It seemed that in these 3 years, Han Shilling had changed a lot. You should not look at Han Shilling with the same eyes as before. It was just that he was vaguely unwilling to believe it before. Seeing that Di Beichen did not hesitate to believe that this was done by Han Shilling, Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised. After all, Di Beichen did not have such an attitude before. How can you be sure that it is Han Shilling? There was a trace of surprise in her dark phoenix eyes. Although she also believed that this was done by Han Shilling, she had no evidence now. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with pity. In order not to embarrass him, his wife did not even say such a thing. Speaking of which, his previous attitude must have made Bailey Hongzhuang very helpless. Wife, I'm not a stupid person. It was just a simple sentence, but Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood. She had already thought it through so clearly. How could Di Beichen not understand? You and Mo Yunjue met at that time? Even if Mo Yunjue did not say it, Di Beichen immediately analyzed it. Chapter 908. Di Beichen could imagine that at that time, Bailey Hongzhuang must have experienced a lot of danger. This time, after he returned, he felt that the matter with the sect was strange. Now it seemed that everything in the sect was deliberately done by Han Shilling, in order to send him away so that he could make a move on Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking of this, Di Beichen felt a chill in his heart. During the time he was away, so many things happened. In the future, no matter what, he could not let Bailey Hongzhuang be alone. Mo Yunjue was right. He was not competent enough as a husband. However, that was in the past. In the future, he would not let such a thing happen again. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, I met the first wave of assassins, and then Mo Yunjue appeared. The second wave of assassins saw that they could not make a move and left. After that, I always stayed with everyone and did not act alone. The assassins also did not find a chance to make a move. Now that you are here, I think those assassins have already left. Her clear and bright eyes rippled with a calm light. Han Shilling could be said to be unscrupulous in killing her, but when Di Beichen appeared, Han Shilling had some scruples. Because Han Shilling did not mind letting anyone see her cruel side, except for Di Beichen. Di Beichen was not surprised. He gently stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's long black hair. I will deal with this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang heard the decisiveness in Di Beichen's words. She knew that Di Beichen had already made a decision. In fact, before, she was not willing to mention Han Shilling in front of Di Beichen, because she did not want to make things difficult for Di Beichen. If it wasn't for Han Shilling's help over the years, Di Beichen's situation in Fengbo would have been even worse. Therefore, she was also grateful to Han Shilling. However, when Han Shilling tried to kill her, all of this was gone. It was obviously not Bailey Hongzhuang's style to not take revenge. Di Beichen wrapped his arms around Bailey Hongzhuang. His nose was filled with the refreshing fragrance of Bailey Hongzhuang. His tightly knitted brows slowly relaxed. Only when he was with Bailey Hongzhuang could he feel at ease and relaxed. During the time he was away, he had been worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. He only hoped that everything could be settled as soon as possible so that he could come back as soon as possible. Previously, when he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was injured, he also put all his attention on Bailey Hongzhuang's injury. Now that the injury had improved a little, he was completely relaxed. Bailey Hongzhuang was a unique treasure for him. Only when he was by Bailey Hongzhuang's side could he feel at ease. At this moment, holding Bailey Hongzhuang in his arms, he felt very comfortable. Bailey Hongzhuang also quietly leaned on Di Beichen's chest, listening to the latter's strong and powerful heartbeat. This kind of quiet time was also a kind of enjoyment for her. She understood that if Di Beichen said that he would deal with it, then he would definitely deal with it. Perhaps Di Beichen had some hesitation before, but now that Di Beichen had made a decision, it would naturally be much easier to deal with it. After a long while, Di Beichen said, "Wife, I have never heard that you were talented in inscription before. If it weren't for the arrival of Bai Jingtian and the other two, you might not know about this matter.